sir.
All right. I'd like to call this meeting of the Horn Lake Board of Aldermen to order. As always, good government depends on the participation of our citizens, and we certainly thank you for coming out on this beautiful evening. At this time, I'd like to ask Alderman Bostic for our invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we just thank you for this opportunity to serve the city. Lord, just help us in the decisions that we make, Lord, that will make them that will be pleasing to you, Father, Lord, and lift you up most of all, Lord. Just be with each family represented here tonight, the ones that can't be here, Father, Lord, and just thank you for all you do for us. In your Son's name we ask. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Would you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Young?
And salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Thank all of y'all. This time we'll have a roll call. Mr. Jim Robertson, please.
Alderman Klein.
Here.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Here.
Alderman Guy.
Here.
Alderman Bostic.
Here.
Alderman Johnson.
Here.
Alderman Dupree.
Here.
Alderman Young.
Here.
Do I need to step out on this right here?
All right.
I think he's just going to present.
Moving on, the first item on the agenda is the vote on the municipal docket. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to approve the municipal docket.
Motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. The second item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, before we make a motion on that, I'd like to make an announcement. At the August 31 meeting, we approved 2 payments, and we had an error in one of them. Both of them were to excavators for the Tulane Road Bridge Replacement Project, and one of those should have been to Gibson Paving for the street rehab project. And I just wanted the board to know that we had made that correction in the minutes that are being approved tonight as letter A under the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion?
Mayor.
Alderman Bostic.
I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Do we, Billy, do we need to rescind that board order and redo it?
No, sir. We have it corrected in the minutes that you are approving tonight. It does say pay number 2 to Gibson Paving for the street rehab project. The amount was correct, but the project and the contractor's name was incorrect, but we have corrected that.
So the board order would still stand with that correction?
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
I'd like to motion to approve the consent agenda, items A through F.
We have a motion by Alderman Johnson. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Mayor.
We have a second by Alderman Dupree. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
The motion passes, 7 in favor, none opposed. Number 3 on the agenda is the claims docket. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
make a motion to approve the claims docket. General fund, $627,002. $627,002.29. The bond-funded cap project expense for $410,804.36. The library fund for $1,449.24. The economic development fund for $9,525.82. and the utility fund for $300,904.37 for a total docket of $1,349,686.08.
We have a motion by Alderman Geist. Do we have a second?
I
Mayor.
second.
I second.
Second by Alderman Young. Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geist.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Number 4, we're under special gifts and presentations. On letter A, we have Mr. Dan Lehman with the DeSoto Family Theater. Welcome, Mr. Dan. Honor to have you here, sir. Mr. Jim, do you need his name and address, or do you already have those?
I have that, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, Act 1 of my presentation will last less than 3 minutes. No, I'm kidding. There is no Act 1, no Act 2. There's only what I want to tell you is what I think is most important about what we do at Community Theater. At DeSoto Family Theater, which you support, is a continuous of good family theater, wholesome for the whole family, available to anybody who wants to come and see a show, wants to be in a show, wants to learn how to do a show. That is our purpose to the community, to try to help create a culture of good art. Okay? So that's one of the things you support, and that's one of the things our board swears to uphold, is good family-friendly theater. In addition, what you don't see behind the scenes, besides us working with the Justice Network to help those people who can't afford to pay tickets, we've run 192 people through the community service portion of our organization, building sets, painting, cleaning, whatever they can do to help them become back into the process. We do never identify them to anybody in the cast. They're there, they're volunteers. We treat them with dignity. Dignity leads to respect, which leads them to go back to the community and go, I did my job, and we met some friends, and we made some experiences into better family experiences. And that is something we facilitate at the theater by doing what we do. The other thing that most people don't know is the show we just did, Bye Bye Birdie, 42 young people on stage. Most of them were high school age or in college. And the thing that is most impressive is many of them want to go on to become Broadway stars. Most of them know that they need a plan B. Okay? Plan B is, if that doesn't work, what are you going to do? And the process by which we mentor to them is to give them encouragement in finding and talking to people. How many of you, if a young 18-year-old walked in here and said, how did you get to be alderman? What would you do? You'd probably need CPR and need someone to bring you back up and go, what in the world is this 18-year-old asking me for advice? You don't see that being done. When our shows are going on, they're always talking, what can I do? How can it become something? How can I show thanks for what we're given here as a chance to do theater? And that's mostly what the young people are going to do. They're going to do theater, then they're going to go do something else. In the last season of shows that we've had graduating seniors, 6 have gone on to become pre-med, architects, engineers, and that's because of direct interaction with adults backstage saying, go talk to this person, they do that. Go talk to this person, they do that. So we're mentoring them in their plan B to become good citizens in this community, which is a key part of them growing up. I'm also happy to report that we just saw 2. They go to Mississippi State. I don't care if anybody minds that or likes that or doesn't like that, but they're both Mississippi State, and they've done technical side of theater and acting side of theater. One's just committed to the Army ROTC, and the other one's committed to the Air Force ROTC. And that's a direct involvement of people helping young people find their way. 42 people on stage. Every one of those young people had one minimum full-time or part-time job. Several of them had other jobs. Some worked with John Wood's First Choice Catering and helping out and serving food. So these are people that are not the typical, I'm looking for a handout, I'm looking for support, what do? I need to go to college to get in debt and go on and do something that I can't really make a living at. We are working with them to help them understand community helps them, community theater helps them do something to find their way and then become a part of something that when they can give back to the community, they're going to be good bankers, good attorneys, good citizens, volunteering. I think this community ought to win the award for being Navy SEALs in the world of supporting each other. I mean, if you look at what a Navy SEAL does, the first and foremost thing a Navy SEAL does is says, it's not about me being a leader, it's about me supporting the guys by my left and right. And that's what they learn, and that's what we learn in theater. You're there to support the people in the community that help you do theater, and you go back and find a way to help them. So for example, we're going to be at the food truck event. We're going to be singing, trying to provide some entertainment. We do caroling in different communities. It's very important. The help you give us goes into keeping our budgets as low as possible to make our seats as most affordable and the family experience, community experience continue to grow. So with that, I'm pleased to say thank you if you're going to continue to support us. We appreciate it. We use your dollars very smartly. And if there's any questions you have for me, I would want to make sure that you know you have tickets available to see any of the shows we have coming up. And we do have a full season. We've done 20 years now, 93 shows since we started. And we have the next on stage is the Marvelous Wonderettes, 50s and 60s songs done by Lady Quartet. Then we're doing the Cinderella show. Mary Poppins is coming up. So we have a Grease High School version. So there's a lot of good things that we're doing. We work with the community. We have other community events happening. If there's something that I can do to help you understand what you're doing, if there's a way you'd like to come see a show and participate in it, I'd love for that to be known. I'd love that request to come and be a part of what we're trying to do to help facilitate giving back for the gift you give to us. So is there anything I can answer for any of you about what we're doing or why we do it?
Mr. Dan, y'all are a wonderful organization, have done so much to help so many. Excuse me. Is there anyone on the board has any questions or comments? Alderman Bostic.
I was just curious, do you have a breakdown of like the 42 people that were there, what community percentage that come out of South Haven, Horn Lake, Hernando, or?
They come out of the greater Memphis area. Some of them are, some come as far as up at Bartlett.
Right.
So there's a large percentage of them in the community theater that come from the community here. The people I mentioned, that the three pre-med students were all on our stage since the time they were 6 years of age.
Those Horn Lake residents?
Those are citizens of DeSoto County.
DeSoto County, but you don't have a breakdown.
I do not have a breakdown.
I got you.
But we support, our theater supports all of the community and the high school theater. So while we are continuing to go on, all the high schools are supported and encouraged to continue to do theater. We have a staff that goes out and helps facilitate that and judge that show and encourages that art form to be appreciated as well as to be family friendly. And we support that through our time and our counseling and our coaching.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Mayor,
Alderman Johnson.
just want to say thank you. The arts are very important to academic life for any student, and it facilitates so many other things and so many aspects and outlets for their lives. So thank you. I appreciate it. I know your services have worked here. They are very much needed here, so I do appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And we teach them all to serve. I'm a member of the House of Grace and other causes that we can support. We try to help them learn that being a part of the community is what you want to do, and be a part of that community includes giving beyond your means.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, again, thank you. But a few years back, y'all did a Christmas carol, and the gentleman who played the Ghost of Christmas Present was from Horn Lake. He was fantastic. Is he pursuing that in college, or do you know? I can't recall his name.
I can't remember which person that would have been, who that was. I'm sorry.
And you say the next show was what, the Marvelous Marvelettes?
Marvelous Wonderettes, 4 young ladies singing 50s and 60s songs. Mr. Sandman, I don't sing, so I don't sing that. But there's a whole quartet of songs from the 50s. It starts off as a high school prom. Think about the Horn Lake High School prom. And then 10 years later, they come back together and they meet up and they sing more songs together. And it's just 4 ladies on stage singing fun songs.
When is that going to be?
That runs in October, and then Cinderella is at Christmas. And again, we have tickets available for you should you ever want to come and see a show. You're invited to come, be a part of the experience. We do protect each other by wearing masks when we follow the protocols. When we did Peter Pan last Christmas, all the actors on stage had clear masks on, and we had no COVID outbreak or no COVID cases. So we're very pleased to say that we do protect our actors, protect the direction, protect the production team as well. So,
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have questions or comments? Alderman Geis?
No, sir.
Oh, no. Anyone else?
Mayor.
Alderman Bledsoe?
Can you get us a schedule when everything's going? So
I'd be glad to. I'll make sure. It changes with COVID protocols. We had postponed our fall show in September to October, and I will make sure that it's on your office, on your board. Okay?
If no one else has any questions or comments, Thank you, Mr. Dan.
Would you excuse me now? I have to go do the same thing at the city of South Haven and update them on what we're doing and how we're doing it. So you know how to reach me. I work at Landers Automotive Group, now helping Jeff Field do things for the community. So I'm there. If you want to reach me, please reach out, and I will be glad to help you all any way I can. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. All right, letter B is the great patriotic organization of men and women who have served our country, the American Legion. But before we go any further, because I don't want to have a lot of people leaving before I announce this, as many of you already know, we lost a really valued member of our community this week, Mr. Larry Gideon, who was a Vietnam veteran. His services are going to be, his celebration of life is at 11 o'clock this Saturday, 9/11, at the Compel Church at 820 Church Road East. That's 11 o'clock this Saturday at 820 Church Road East, the Compel Church. I was told that's between Getwell and Sweeney. I really don't know myself. But anyway, he was certainly a fine gentleman, served his country, served his community, a wonderful family man. May he rest in peace. All right, at this time, we have a proclamation for the American Legion. Did anyone from the Legion want to say anything first, or? I'm going to have to ask you, gentlemen, please give your name and address so Mr. Jim can enter it in the minutes, please.
My name is George Watson, 2650 Valley Brook, Horn Lake.
Ken Morgan, 755 Reed Road, Hernando.
Thank you, gentlemen. If you would, please speak into the microphone. Did you have anything to present to the board, Mr. George?
We just would love to cordially invite all of you to the ceremony Saturday. We're going to a 9/11 ceremony at 10 o'clock, right after our breakfast, after all of you come and eat breakfast with us. And we'd love to have you. I know you said you got a
Well, this is
funeral.
Mr. Larry's thing. But did y'all have anything else? I know at one time you were talking about, I have a proclamation to be read in a minute, but I know at one time you were inquiring about an archery shoot. Is that for tonight, or is that for another day?
The archery shoot is for the...
Sometime in October, I believe.
Yeah, October 23rd.
So y'all will come back before the board then, or y'all had the board tonight?
I was told by Alderman Young that y'all were going to go ahead and vote on it.
If you could speak into the mic.
I'm sorry.
George.
I was told by Alderman Young that that was pretty well taken care of. Y'all was going to vote on it tonight, as far as I know.
Alderman Young?
Yeah, I'm going to have to recuse myself from the vote, but as far as I understand, yes, we need to go ahead and vote on it so they can set the date and get the permit done and everything.
And so the request is to have an archery contest on the grounds of the American Legion?
Yes, sir.
On October the 28th, sir?
Yes, sir.
Strictly bow and arrow, no firearms?
Strictly bow and arrow.
Does anyone on the board have any questions or comments? What time will this start, Mr. George?
I think it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
Is it open for, Mr. Bob, did you have something you wanted to say?
Mr. Mayor, if I might add.
Yes, sir.
When they appeared last time, there was a question if this was some sort of conditional use or something of that nature with regard to the zoning. Mr. Campbell and I researched it, determined it was a special event, and it wasn't restricted by conditional use. They just needed to apply for a special event permit. And I think I spoke with someone on the phone in that regard at some point. So as far as we're concerned, they're good to go for that confined, singular, special event, unless the board has other input.
Thank you, sir. Just that a member of the Legion will have to come down and apply for the permit.
That's correct, yes, sir.
And who would I need to see about the permit?
Tammy.
Tammy, okay.
You know Ms. Woods there.
Yes.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? Do we have a motion to approve?
Mayor, I'll make the
But,
motion.
somebody have a question? Alderman Johnson.
Can you refresh my memory, if not everyone else's, about the event?
I didn't understand.
So it's just going to be, we hope to have an annual event just to raise funds for the veterans of DeSoto County, using the Sons of the American Legion, probably from not only our post, but from the post 1990 in Nesbit. If things go well, the community accepted, well, we hope to do it annually.
Okay. So is this a fundraiser?
It is a fundraiser, yes.
Is it open to the public or just members of the American Legion?
Open to the public.
So if someone's not a member and wants to participate, they just come down and pay the fee and...
Absolutely. Be individual ticket sales for a line of either 7 to 10 shooters, and we're going to do it turkey shoot style, so there will be prizes.
Mayor,
Alderman Young.
I'm not going to vote or anything, but we have convinced Mr. George there, he will be wearing a turkey shoot as a live target.
Well, I'm not going to touch that.
Thank you.
Alderman Johnson, do you have anything else?
No, sir.
Alderman Dupree, do you have anything?
No, I was just going to make a motion.
Any more discussion or questions? Do we have Mr. Billy?
Mr. Bob, do you need board action to approve?
We don't need any board action.
That was my understanding as well, that the planning department can approve a special event permit without board action, correct?
Don't need it. Is anybody opposed before we go any further? No one. All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I have a proclamation here. Whereas the unprovoked attacks of September the 11th, 2001, upon America by foreign terrorists have thrust the United States and other countries into a war it never envisioned, militarily or diplomatically, and whereas this new great unknown and uncertainty has woven itself into all the threads of society, and whereas the challenges facing all the civilized people of the world as they relate to the war on terrorism will not end until those fanatics are eliminated or brought to justice, and whereas America is fully committed through the Operation Enduring Freedom campaign to ensure our freedoms remain unfettered and sovereign for all generations, now and forever. And whereas world opinion needs to remain focused upon the eradication of these inhuman acts perpetrated around the globe, and whereas one way to accomplish this is to never forget that those innocent victims did not die in vain, and whereas America can fight back by reminding the world the deaths of these people will always be remembered and they will be forever loved. And whereas a noble and appropriate way to accomplish this is through the annual celebration of their living. And whereas this commemoration shall be held each September the 11th throughout the land with a tribute to include the promotion of global peace and goodwill, the demonstration of America's resolve and perseverance to win the war on terrorism, the advancement of responsible citizenship, the encouragement of patriotism and love of country, and the poignant remembrance of those innocent victims that needlessly died on September the 11th as heroes, one and all. Now, therefore, be it resolved, as the mayor of Horn Lake, I am issuing this proclamation to memorialize those men, women, and children who lost their lives, and be it further resolved that this proclamation be publicized for all to see and know that the citizens of Horn Lake remember with eternal respect those whose lives were suddenly, without cause, and pointlessly taken from them on September the 11th, 2001. May they forever rest in peace and abide in our memories. And I believe that the American Legion, you are having program at 10 o'clock on this Saturday in remembrance of those who lost their lives on September the 11th.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. And is it open to all members of the public?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, gentlemen, for your past service and for your service to the community now.
I have one more thing to add, Mayor.
Anything you want to, sir.
I'm a life member of Hugh Dancy, American Legion Post 134, and I feel very confident in saying that there will be a officer of the American Legion who will be the state commander for the Department of Mississippi in the near future. That's going to be a very proud moment for us and a very proud moment for Horn Lake. I don't think it's ever happened.
It certainly will be, sir, and I hope you're a prophet. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right. Letter D is Mr. Engel, who has been doing the city audit. Mr. David, good to see you. Thank you for all your hard work, and I know we pushed you. Thank you very much, sir.
No, it was nothing there. Don't worry about pushing me. This had to get done. So I'm proud to at least present to you, albeit in a draft form. I did promise last month that I would bring an audit report to you, and I have delivered on that. As far as it being in a draft form, it's just a matter of just get a couple more paperwork items, and we'll get this thing formally approved and released and published. So I did want to mention that too, as far as the form of the report here. First thing I wanted to go over a couple of items on this audit report and just bring them to your attention. Page 21 is going to be your statement of net position. At least now you're going to have some numbers to chew on here. First thing I wanted to mention, net position. You will see a number here for net position. It's going to be a negative number under governmental activities of about $1.2 million. The reason the number is negative, you have a large number up there that's called unrestricted. It is due to your net pension liability that they spread. That the PERS spreads everywhere in the state to all local entities. They have to show this number on there, so that makes your number look a little worse than what it really is. And we do have a note somewhere later on in the statements, I believe it's note 13 or 14, where we make explanation as to why that number looks that way, and it does make your statements look a little worse than what they actually are. So just wanted to point that one out to you. Second thing, page 23, I wanted to go over your general fund real quick and mention kind of your position y'all are in right now. Your fund balance position unassigned as of September 30th of 19, I have you at over $3 million, about 3.15 to be approximate there as far as your net position in that fund. So as you can see, it looks a lot better on this side than it does on the first exhibit that I showed you. What that number means right there with your fund position, when I compare it to how much revenue you collect during the year, I do a little calculation there to kind of get an idea of how far y'all can stretch those dollars. I've got you around 20%, which is a good number. So you're pretty solvent as far as going on to the next year and to the next budget year. So your cash reserves are pretty good right now from what I see for September 30th of 19. And further illustrate that, the next page, page 25, which is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance, you'll see under that general fund, your net change, you went over $1.2 million. Y'all raised more revenue than had expenditures during the year, so that kind of helped your bottom line position in the general fund. So I did want to point that out and give a little meaning to that fund balance number there. And a couple other things. I'm going to point out one thing. We're going to go to the end of the report here, page 65. I want to go over the audit opinions that we issued here and kind of explain those a little. The last meeting I had, I said it was going to be a fully unmodified opinion audit. During that time, very early on, I was looking through your board minutes. I noticed that y'all offered a program to retirees. Y'all offered health insurance benefits and to retirees. Y'all been doing that for a little while now, correct? And problem with that, it triggered a finding. I don't think y'all had this finding before. It's more an accounting pronouncement. It's called GASB Statement Number 78, where you have to show a liability for post-employment benefits for these employees that are eligible for this service. Speaking with AJ, she mentioned that currently you have no employees. I guess at this point you had no employees that were taking advantage of the program at that point. As far as retirees go, you may have had a few that were doing COBRA, but even at that, I think there is a requirement that there has to be a liability still for even eligible employees who are terminated, who are retired or whatever, that are eligible for the program. There has to be a actuarial calculation of that figure, and it's more or less put on as a liability on your financial statements. I know this kind of caught Jim by surprise and caught you by surprise a little, and kind of caught me by surprise too when I saw it, but I was kind of hemmed in as far as the decision goes, and I had to write it up, and that resulted in modifying the opinion for governmental activities, business type activities, and for your utility fund, which that's really one and the same with your business type activities, since that's the only fund under there. So I was pretty much, had to write that, but there is, and we'll talk about later as far as kind of what to do on that. I had the same situation in a neighboring municipality too, so this is more or less, I'm finding these more and more with clients now that these things are being offered, and there hadn't been liabilities put on the books. It's more an accounting pronouncement than anything. So that was your only finding that I had as far as the audit report goes. But I did want to point that out and kind of explain that, because you didn't have that information last time, and I didn't have that information either when I came before you last month. So I wanted to make sure I explained that to you here. But
I was just saying thank you.
yeah. But as far as that goes, if y'all have any questions as far as the audit goes, if you want to know when we'll get your final report to you and all, I'm here to take any questions you have.
Does anyone have any questions? Alderman Geis.
Yes, sir.
What does modified and unmodified mean?
Modified means it's kind of an except for this instance, the numbers that are stated on the financial statements are reasonable and can be relied upon.
Okay.
The only exception is that we don't have an other post-employment benefit liability amount there.
Okay.
That's the only exception to that.
So it also shows unmodified on general fund,
Yes.
debt service,
Right.
and then modified on utility and business type activities. On the business and the utility fund,
Yeah.
why was that modified?
Well, business and utility are pretty much one and the same. It's more going to be on the, government-wide presentation, which is going to be overall business type activities. And since they're one and the same, they had to both be modified. And governmental activities is an overall encompassing general fund, your debt service fund, and your other two funds that y'all have, the other governmental funds. We don't usually put the liability in at a fund level. We're going to do it more at the government-wide level, and that's why it's modified as it is.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Young.
Sir, I'm very pleased with your timeliness. This
I
is
worked
good.
for it.
You did good.
Thank you.
So basically what you're saying, if I'm understanding it, we have to develop a retirement fund on the backside of somebody either leaving or quitting or retiring.
Right.
And that will do away with that one finding that you found.
I'll explain that a little. What it is, it's going to require an actuarial calculation is what it does. It's going to be an extra service. It's an actuary is going to have to perform for you They're gonna be the ones going in, making those estimates. They'll use your, previous employment activity, whoever's been employed, who's been terminated, determine who's eligible for it and what the cap is. I think it's like 65 is a cap, like when you're eligible for Medicare and that sort of,
So we're not gonna have to backset anything to cover this?
no, you'll have to get somebody to do this to this and get this number for you. They usually do it on like a 2-year scale. It's like every 2 years you'll get such a report.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir. I
You're
appreciate it again. Now, you'll have the next one done next week?
Oh, I'll have to finalize it.
Alderman Klein.
And sir, you said this retirement thing that popped out, that followed under the Gates number 78?
Yeah, GASB number 78. Yeah, it's a later pronouncement. I think it started about 2017 it came into being. There was a former pronouncement, I think it was 45 that it used to come under, and I'll just say, I mean, it's one of those, I mean, it's either caught or it's not, and I kind of was in a position where I had to put it in.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? Well, we certainly thank you for all the hard work you've done. Hopefully in the future still look forward to seeing you. And it's my understanding you're going to drive all the way back to Jackson tonight?
Oh, yeah. Clears my head.
Sir?
It clears my head.
Clears your head. Well,
it's a 2.5-hour drive.
Did you have anything else for the board or anyone? Or,
pretty much. I mean, I hope to have you a final report here within a week and have everything published, and maybe next time around I can give you an engagement letter, and maybe hopefully you'll have me again.
Thank you so much, sir. And you please be careful going home and stay healthy, sir.
Thank you there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for coming up, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we're down to letter 5, planning. Case number 2042 SD, Ravenwood Subdivision G, final approval on the 24 townhouse home lots. Mr. Bob.
Mayor and Board, this is carried over from a previous board meeting to allow the applicant to consider various aspects of the plan unit development. To remind the board, or as a reminder, we're working with Ravenwood subdivision or plan unit development. If you'll scroll down, Jim, we'll get to a map of Ravenwood. So if you'll flip that on its side, the circled area there is the specific site that we are looking at. So Ravenwood was adopted in DeSoto County back in the mid-90s or early 90s, a long time ago. It was later annexed by the city of Horn Lake, and the city of Horn Lake amended and changed Ravenwood plan unit development to remove some multiple family housing and to change the configuration to some degree. And this is Ravenwood as it exists today. This is the built portion of it. And I apologize, I don't have my laser pointer to point. But the most southern portion that is not constructed, south of the homes between Nail Road and the first tier of homes, you recently approved that as, I believe, Section F, Ravenwood. The very corner at Nail and Horn Lake Road is zone commercial, and you'll be seeing that. I may have already seen it as a subdivision. But the area that is circled there is a section of townhomes. And Mr. Chris Montesi has applied for subdivision approval for 24 townhome lots. And if you'll scroll down, Jim, to the next map, I think you will see, yes. So you'll see it outlined right there. There was quite a bit of discussion about the homeowners association, the detention pond, who's responsible for the detention area that you see here. The reading of the plan unit development document by Mr. Campbell was interpreted that the townhomes were responsible for the detention area just to the north. As also Mr. Ben Smith, at an appearance before the board a month or so back, declared he was the one that created the plan unit development, engineer Ben Smith, and he stated that that was his intent to require this detention area to the north of the townhomes to be the responsibility of the homeowners association, that applicable to the townhomes. So that's where the question was left. There was quite a bit of discussion about the association, who would care for the association, what the nature of the detention area was, who was going to care for that. The board carried it over to allow the applicant to study the issue further. I believe they're here. They should be here, Mr. Nick Croonan and Mr. Montesi, and perhaps Mr. Barry Bridgeforth, attorney, are here to address the matter. If you have any questions from me, that I'm just bringing you up to speed as to where we left it.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Barber? Anyone?
Right here.
Alderman Klein.
Let me clarify. So, did the Planning Commission and everybody came to agreement that the homeowners association will be responsible for the existing detention pond?
No, sir. Mr. Klein, that issue did not come up before the Planning Commission. The nature of who was responsible for that existing detention pond, that matter came up as it was discussed before the Board of Aldermen.
Okay.
Anyone else have any questions or comments for Mr. Barber? Thank you, Mr. Bob.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Montesi, did you want to, are you a representative? Good evening, sir. If you give your name and address, Mr. Jim, for the minutes, we'd appreciate it.
Nicholas Croonan, address is 3629 College Road, South Haven, Mississippi. And I've got some drawings to pass around.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to touch on everything we talked before. What I did is I got a bullet point summary on some things that were discussed at the previous meeting and things that we agreed to do, things that we self-imposed on ourselves, as well as we agreed from discussions from previous meetings to hopefully we can skip through some of the stuff and get to the drainage discussion.
Yes. Could you speak into the mic?
Yes.
You might have to raise it up for you a little
Sorry.
bit. Thank you, sir. Hi, sir.
Sorry, did I not print enough? So to summarize, the first page is just a bullet point of some things that were discussed, self-imposed, and to actually put it in writing of what we're agreeing to do. Of course, all units require to have a minimum of a single-car garage. Minimum heated square feet is 1,350 square feet. Developer agrees to financially support the HOA for a minimum of 4 years. Developer agrees to have an executed contract with an HOA management company within 4 years of recording the plat. Developer agrees to pay the City of Horn Lake $8,500 or the $250 per lot to the city for the Parks Department as part of the PUD requirements. And also I added a sentence there that they understand that has to be paid before the plat is recorded and before any building permits may be issued. The Section G HOA will maintain the 1.17 acre detention pond that is part of Section G. That'll be further explained, and that's just what I'm saying we're agreeing to tonight as part of this bullet point, or at this moment. Developer agrees to provide a privacy wood fence on the south of Section G as mentioned in the PUD, and developer to supply proof of HOA information to the city that the HOA was formed before the plat can be recorded. Then I'm going to kind of skip around and go to the large drawing. One thing I thought was a good idea is for me to prepare a drawing so we can fully understand the detention ponds, the drainage, and what we're discussing as far as drainage for this site. This site is made up of two major drainage areas, and one thing that I know that's been, that many things have been said about this drainage, but there are two existing ponds. They're built today, they're there today, the outlet structure is there today. One pond is 1.17 acres, which is on Mr. Montese's property, and handles the drainage for south of that pond. And I gave a breakdown of approximately how many lots are draining to that pond. I know this is way more information than y'all want to see, but I just thought it was good, pertinent information to help understand what each pond is doing and what they're for. Pond 1, which is the pond that was mentioned before, is 1.8 acres, and it's north of the site. And it handles all of the drainage from the previous sections of Ravenwood, as well as some drainage to the north of Ravenwood and to the east across Horn Lake Road. Approximately 273 existing homes go to that detention pond, as well as 14 lots that would be part of Section F that's to be built. The main reason I wanted to outline this is because in the PUD document, it mentions a 3.5 acre pond. It doesn't mention two ponds. It doesn't mention none of this that's here. If you go back to the second page of your packet, which is the layout that was part of the PUD document, you can see a highlighted 3.5 acre pond. When the original PUD was drawn up, it was intended for there to be one lake, not two. I actually talked to Ben Smith and to try to get history on this. Why is there one pond and why is there two now? He was not even aware there were two ponds. He thought it was still one pond. Come to find out, Ben got the PUD approved, but somebody else designed it. And so when it was designed is when it was split into two ponds and was no longer one 3.5 acre pond. So I just wanted to point out that things have changed since the original. Now we have two outlet structures. Those ponds act as individual detention ponds. They do not join together and act as one. So just wanted to, kind of catch up to speed to the bullet points of previous discussions to try to minimize, rehashing some things that we're agreeing in writing as far as HOA, square footage, all those things. And I really wanted to outline what the drainage was doing, where it's going, all that stuff. And I was going to let Mr. Barry Bridgeforth come up and discuss his findings and, his review of the PUD documents.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bridgeforth. Mr. Robinson, do you have Mr. Bridgeforth's name and address?
Barry Bridgeforth, 5293 Getwell Road, South Haven, Mississippi, 38672. Mayor, members of the board, I had an opportunity to review the PUD documents, and I've also spoken to Ben Smith about what was approved back, it looks like in 2003, when the other portions of this were developed.
Excuse me, Mr. Bridgeforth, if you could speak into that. I'm hard to hear a little bit.
Sorry, my apologies. Looking at the PUD documents, I believe that were discussed at the prior meeting. The PUD documents do have numerous inconsistencies that have already been pointed out by Mr. Croonan about the lakes and the areas and what is deemed to be single-family lots, what are deemed to be multifamily lots, and who's going to be responsible for things. Now, I reviewed the documents that were provided with regard to the common area and management, and I believe that was in Mr. Croonan's packet that he handed everyone. If you all would flip to that page, the first heading in the packet is signage, fencing, and buffers, and then if you look down the page there, you'll see it discusses common areas and management. And my review of the PUD, as it was submitted and previously approved, shows that nowhere in here does it state that the townhomes are required to maintain the detention areas. If you look at the first sentence there, it basically reads that It is proposed that a 3.5 plus or minus acre lake be constructed as an amenity and a retention facility for the drainage runoff. All right, so the first sentence there, we've got one pond. Well, as they were constructed, now there's two ponds. One pond is located on the property that was developed as Section C by Chambliss. The other pond is 1.17 acres, and that's actually on the piece of property that is for the townhome area. The runoff from the townhome area goes into the 1.17 acre pond, and that's what the developer here, Mr. Montesi, is agreeing to maintain. But we start off by an inconsistency in the very first sentence as to what we actually have on site as far as what the detention is, and I'm assuming that the city approved that. The city engineer approved them breaking it up from one pond to two ponds. And that's what's on site now, as Mr. Croonan testified to. Now, the second sentence says, only owners' lots located in the townhome development will have use of the lake as well as other common areas. So that sentence gives the townhome people use of the lake. Not which lake, but a lake. Then we have a homeowners association, HOA, will be formed and started when approximately 60% of the single-family lots are occupied. Okay, we talk about a homeowners association in single-family lots. The single-family lots are Section C. That's a single-family residential home. Townhomes are multifamily, and I'm not sure about exactly what the classification is. I believe it's C2 is single-family as far as this PUD, and C4 may be the multifamily on there. So we've got a homeowners association being required consisting of single-family residential lots, which the townhomes are not single-family residential lots. So we've got basically what is Section C, who is draining into the pond there that's 1.8 acres, and those are the people that are required to maintain it under the PUD documents. The lake will be constructed in Phase C. The townhomes are Phase G. The part that was developed back in 03 or 04 by Chambliss is Phase C. Park benches and gazebo will be located by the developer in a common area at the upper end of the lake. Seed money of $3,000 will be given to the HOA at its inception by the developers. Well, since we're talking about a homeowners association for single-family homes, I'm assuming that that would be Chambliss putting seed money into the HOA of single-family homeowners there. So in our situation, we've got a developer of the townhomes that has acknowledged that he will have a detention lake on his property that's 1.17, and he's agreed to install it and maintain it. It's my understanding that it's already installed, but he'll agree to continue to maintain it. He's agreed to set up the HOA in which we'll be able to do that, and has agreed to use Keith Collins' company to make sure that it is a fluid entity for approximately 4 years. And the developer doesn't own the 1.8 acres. I don't think that it's appropriate for this board to require a developer to maintain property that's not even his, that he doesn't own, and it was developed by another developer and maintained, and should have been maintained according to the PUD documents, by an association formed by the other developer. So I think based on those things based on those facts, I don't think that it's appropriate for this board, using this PUD document, to say that the townhomes are responsible for maintaining a detention basin that was developed by another developer, maintained on another piece of property that this developer doesn't own or have anything to do with. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone?
I do, Mayor.
All right, Alderman Dupree.
The HOA,
Alderman, could you?
oh, in the HOA, you said that the developer will maintain it for 4 years, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
People inside that move in, you get a handful of them and say, we don't want to pay these dues anymore. We want to fire the company who's running the HOA. They can do that. Is that right?
Typically, if they have annual meetings and can get a quorum of people involved, they do have the right to take action such as that.
Okay, so this is not set in stone that we will have an HOA.
I could look at, I don't know if they could select, sign a contract with another entity for a certain number of years, but I think that the board would be able to take action that would bind the homeowners association for a 4-year period. I've not researched it, but I believe that a board can sign an agreement with an HOA management company for a certain time period. Now, if they terminated it, it would most likely be a breach of that agreement between, who I believe that we were discussing, Keith Collins and Company, as being the proposed manager of this company, and they are a large management company in both Memphis and DeSoto County.
So you're saying that within a certain amount of time, they cannot be fired,
I think
company?
that my client would be willing to enter into a contract with Keith Collins for a 4-year term, is what I'm saying.
And
On
after
behalf
4
of that
years.
association, while he owns and controls everything. And depending on the time period when he owns these lots and these homes, the way I set up my covenants and my HOAs, my developer has a multiplying factor, usually of 5 votes to 1 lot. So he can control an HOA for an extended time period into a certain time period in the future, depending on how quickly the lots are sold or developed.
Okay, and we'll switch subjects. How can I put this? When, in the covenants, correct me if I'm wrong, can we put in the covenants that it cannot be a rental property?
I believe we addressed that at the last
I know,
meeting.
refresh my memory.
And Mr. Campbell and I are both of the same opinion that it's improper for this board to require these properties to have a prohibition against rental based on the law and the city's ability to enforce that law.
All right, thank you for refreshing my memory. So in other words, is very well could turn to a rental property like a lot of things here in the city.
It could possibly happen, but my client's not intending on developing it as a rental property.
Well, I understand, but the intent and what happens later is 2 different things.
Correct. You're exactly right. Yes, sir.
Alderman Young.
Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir.
We are talking about the PUD, right, is what we're discussing.
Yes, sir, the PUD text.
Does it say anywhere in this PUD that there's supposed to be multi-use family homes, townhomes, anywhere in this subdivision?
Yes.
It does?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're telling me, and I think we established at the last meeting, that when was the second pond built? Do you know?
I'm assuming it was built.
Do you know?
Which pond, the 1.8 or
The
the
second
1.17?
one. That you claimed it's the second pond. When was the second pond built?
The 1.17 acres, I personally have no personal
So we don't
knowledge.
know if it was there, or if it was built separately, or if it was included as the 3 acres. That we don't know that. We don't assume, because that there's a hypothetical that goes with that we really don't want to do.
I do not know when the pond was built.
Okay, so that may be the whole 3-acre pond, the 1 and the 2. It could, because it states a 3-acre pond. If we're going to go by the PUD, we're not going to redline things out of there. We're going to go by the PUD.
How the PUD is written, there's a 3.5-acre pond.
So that could be 1 and 2. It doesn't say it's only 1. It doesn't say it's 2. It says a 3-acre pond.
Yes, 3-acre plus or minus. But it's my understanding that the only pond that is actually a full-time pond is the 1.8 acres that was constructed when Section C was constructed per the PUD document said they would be constructed in conjunction
Was
with
the
Section
first
C.
pond already there, or was the second pond? We don't know what pond they're talking about.
There's only one actual pond. The other one is a detention facility that doesn't always hold water.
So what are you going to use this as, a pond or a retention facility?
The developer, this developer would use the 1.17 as a detention facility.
But you just said it's supposed to be a pond.
I may have misspoken.
No, you said that all the way through this process. The retention pond is already there.
Correct.
The one you're talking about is a pond that the fee was paid for because they're not putting in a playground. If we're going to follow this PUD, we're going to follow the PUD line by line, word by word.
Okay?
What you're talking about is a pond. That's a retention pond. Two very different things. You've been in this business a long time like your dad has. You know the difference.
I may have misspoken.
You're not going to come up here and tell me how we're going to do this.
I understand. Me referring to these both as ponds, one holds water, one is, you're exactly right. I was referring to a detention pond or a retention.
We're talking the pond has nothing to do with retention.
The pond that holds water is also used for detention. And Nick can.
Where does it say that in the PUD?
I don't know that it says it in the PUD. I just know that that's the
There
engineering.
again, if we're going to go by the PUD, we're going to go by the PUD. You pick your poison here, and you talking about the PUD.
Yes, sir.
We're going to follow this PUD.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes, sir.
So we're either going to have a pond that's 3 acres, or we're going to have a retention pond. Where did the second pond come from? Where did the second retention pond come? We don't know that.
I'm assuming that the city engineer would have approved both of these in conjunction with the development of
Mr. Bob,
Section C.
do we have that from the city engineer back there that says that how this happened?
I have no record of it.
Have we researched it?
I have not looked on that specific question.
Is one considered a pond? Is one considered a retention pond?
My understanding from the engineer that's examined it, the project engineer, Civil Inc., is that both function as retention. Well, if it's dry, it's detention. Water's detained and then discharged. If it's wet, it's retention, it's retained. So I think one is actually detention pond or detention basin, and the second one is a retention pond.
Okay, so the 1.75 acre that is allowed in this figure for the 3.5 lake, is the lake the retention pond or is it a lake?
I can't answer that. I'd have to defer to either Vince or Nick.
We need to know that. I'm not going anywhere. If we're going to follow this PUD, and I've told you this from day one, if you're going to come here and tell me I'm going to have to look at something from 2003 and you're going to hold my feet to the fire, I'm going to like to match. Now you get these answers. You don't know when the second lake was developed, if it was developed. You don't know if it's a retention pond or a lake. You want to, but you want us to bend over backwards. And the homeowners association, I appreciate that, that's great. The lake will be constructed in phase C. Okay. Is that section C? Or is what we're talking about?
Yes.
I see a section F, I see a section G. Where's C?
C's already been built. C was built
So,
back in the early 2000s.
all right, so that must be the lake then.
Yes, the 1.8.
The big one must be the lake.
Retention pond.
That must be the lake. No, if that's already built, it says the lake. It doesn't say retention pond.
Well, I mean, a retention pond is still holds a body of water and could be a.
Well, I understand what a lake looks like. What I'm trying to express to you is that's not what the PUD says. It says the lake. Where's the retention pond that we're supposed to have? We're saying there's 2 of them there now. Where'd it come from? What is it?
The engineer that designed this told me that when
The engineer that designed what?
original Ravenwood.
So we should have the answer to this then, is what you're telling me.
Well, so Robbie Jones is the engineer that designed phase C, D, and I
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, X, Y, Z. So he should have the answer as to what lake is what.
So the 1.8 acre lake is a retention pond that was built as part of C.
Okay.
And then the 1.17, which is a detention pond, was built at a later phase because they found that the retention was not large enough for the entire site. So
Okay.
it was built at a later, now as far as exact dates, I have no idea.
Gotcha. So those 2 lakes that you are retention ponds or detention ponds or Mediterranean Sea or whatever you want to call them, those equal 3.5 acres.
Is just short of 3 acres.
So we're supposed to have it 3.5 plus or minus, and I think the minus would be maybe 1 or 2, not. So we need to figure that out. How much is it?
2.97.
2.97. So that's counting both of them. Both of them should be one, not two. Is that what I'm hearing, or?
Well,
That's what this is, the PUD that y'all keep pointing us.
Well, the big thing though of the PUD is that a HOA was supposed to be formed in section C.
We're not talking about an HOA, we're talking about the lake.
Okay.
Okay, if the lake is 3 acres, and this says 3.5 plus or minus, we can do away with that, the half acre. So it should have been one lake.
That's correct, according to the original PUD.
So we're gonna have to make it one lake. Because we're going by the PUD, remember?
Well, that was approved by previous construction plans.
You're asking me to do something, and you're using this PUD to tell me what I wanna do. And I'm using this PUD to tell you that, no, I'm not. We're gonna follow this PUD.
Well, what if that PUD engineers found that possibly that 3.5 wouldn't work? I mean,
And maybe it's not working, and that's why the people downstream are getting flooded out, because you didn't do your due diligence to begin with. You're barking up the wrong tree.
If you read this PUD
I sure
document
have.
as a developer,
You can
There
turn around there, you can
nowhere
ask that
does
guy
it
back
state-
there if I've not read it.
Let's keep it one at a time, please, gentlemen. Thank
due
you.
diligence reviewing this PUD document, where it says common areas and management of the detention facility, nowhere does it state that the townhomes are to maintain either a retention or a detention
And
facility.
it doesn't say they're not supposed to either.
Correct. But nowhere in here does it say that, nor does it say that you would be maintaining, a developer would assume that they would have to deal with the water
We're not
on their
assuming
property.
here.
But they wouldn't expect to be required to maintain a piece of property that's been previously approved, constructed, and installed by another developer, to have to come in and be required to maintain that piece of property as a retention pond or detention pond.
Mr. Billy, is that the way you read that?
No, sir.
I didn't. Please explain.
Well, I don't know that I can explain it, but I haven't heard anything tonight that changes my mind. Farther down on that page that is highlighted in yellow, you'll see a third paragraph there that talks about 7.03 acres of common area. And that PUD says it's located in the townhome site. That 7.03 acre common area, as contemplated in the PUD, is the only common area anywhere in Ravenwood, period. And it was supposed to be on the townhome site. As part of the 2003 agreement with the developer, that it's not mentioned in the PUD text here, but it was part of the agreement with the developer. There is a sentence about the Townhome Homeowners Association maintaining the parkland, and the developer agreed to that. So the way I read it is the Townhome Homeowners Association is responsible for all of the common area associated with that PUD, which at the time of this amendment in 2002 was envisioned to be 7 acres. I don't care how big it's going to be, but they are responsible for it under the terms of the PUD.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Maintenance of that common open space. Maintenance of the common open space, what would that be entailed? Just cutting grass? Or is it maintaining an outlet structure that doesn't have any runoff from our site going through it?
The common area includes the detention pond and the retention pond, and we've heard for 2 months now how it hasn't been maintained, so that would include those 2 areas as well.
Well, and our client's main concern with taking over the maintenance of that pond would be accepting previous issues from a previous developer of a site that he doesn't own. He goes out and acquires it, and he's taking on responsibility.
Alderman, please. Thank you, sir.
And he's taking on responsibility of somebody else's drainage, somebody else's runoff, somebody else's everything that doesn't even have anything to do with his site.
And if I can add something to that, that same board order that Billy read from was saying that the homeowner, the townhomes who maintain the parkland also require that other developer to not only build the detention, the pond. Also required him to maintain the pond and to place a bond or financial means up for the maintenance of that structure. That's not our developer. That's the previous developer, and that was my understanding also as part of that order. And that nowhere in that order did it say that the townhomes were going to be responsible for maintaining the detention or the retention ponds, just for clarification purposes.
Yes, it does.
Mr. Billy?
I mean, it says parkland in there, and parkland is defined in the PUD as the lake or retention facility that we're talking about here. It's gotta be. It's considered as part of the acres for the common area.
But it doesn't say that the townhomes are responsible for maintaining the detention or the retention ponds.
It calls it parkland. We can call it something else, but it's part of the common area that they're responsible for maintaining.
Alderman Young?
I'm getting my thoughts together here just a minute,
Understood, take your time.
because I know what I want to say, but this is being recorded. You're stating that this all is a part of the past developer, Chambers Builders. So the way I look at it is either you can assume that you're Chambers Builders because we're following this PUD that you want to hold our feet to the fire on. So I don't care what the name of the company is, we're following the PUD that was developed for Chambers Builders. Or we can just do away with this and start all over again. I mean, either we're going to do it the right way that we're saying we're going to do it because this is the PUD that I have read several times, or we just need to start over and give you your own PUD because you don't want to be Chambers Builders. You don't want to follow the rules that were set for them. Now, I'll leave that in your ballpark. But he's pretty much explained it the way I explained it, probably much more eloquently than I did. But I'll promise you either going to have to, and I'm seriously convinced after going out there and walking this thing and looking at this thing when it was raining, that the reason the people downstream, and I understand that's not your problem, I understand that, but I think the reason they're having so much issue is because the silted has built up into the whatever that is, and because it being divided into two when it was supposed to be one. Because you even highlighted that it was supposed to be one. So you knew it's only supposed to be one. But now you're trying to convince me it's supposed to be two.
Well,
That don't, no Common Core math, please.
well, the PUD document displays one. The PUD document has no engineering, nobody designed the
I agree.
subdivision at that time.
I agree.
And
But we're using the document. You're wanting to reference this document for your argument. So if you're going to reference this document, you're going to have to prove this document wrong.
well,
You can't do that.
the document also states 44 townhomes, and we've self-imposed 34.
That's your decision. I would just knock that lake out and let it go down there for it and build me a few more townhomes. That's what I'd do. But I'm not the builder or the developer, but you're going to have one lake, or detention pond, or retention pond, or just as the attorney had said.
Y'all want to move on to another part of this issue?
Mayor.
Alderman Geis?
The way I'm reading it is, one, it says, Alderman Young mentioned it was it a detention, retention pond, or a lake. It says that it's going to be a 3.5 acre lake constructed as an amenity and a retention pond. So it's saying that it's supposed to be both. My question is it that 1 point whatever acre, I guess 1.17 acre pond on that piece of property, was that, you know, I'm looking at the same stuff as you, was that intended to be a 3.5 acre plus or minus lake on that piece of property and not this one here?
Are you asking
Yeah, I don't
me,
know.
or are you asking Mr.
I'm
Billy?
asking, you know, you clearly, it doesn't make sense to me, however this goes, that somebody would be required to pay and maintain a pond on someone else's property. You know, you know, I know we want this resolved, but if I owned this property, I certainly wouldn't think I was responsible for fixing a retention pond on Mr. Klein's property. That doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know how this happened, you know, but as fairly new board members, we're discovering quite often that there's a lot of stuff in this stuff that shouldn't have ever happened. So how do they go on someone else's property and fix a pond that doesn't belong to them? I don't, do they buy it from the state, and do we, how does that work?
Alderman Klein.
Well,
I
I
wanna get
mean,
back to
of
yours.
course, you're going all the way back to the original PUD, and I would assume it probably was gonna be one developer to develop this PUD, and so therefore it was written that way.
Yeah, that's
But it's caused a dilemma here that we need to correct. It's got to be corrected. Evidently, it's going to require 3.5 acres to be able to handle all this drainage. So we're going to have to come to some kind of consensus here. Otherwise, we're at a stalemate.
Can I address that?
Yes, sir.
One comment you mentioned about the pond addressing the drainage. Now, as far as plans for Section G, as engineer, it's still our responsibility to produce plans and be submitted to be reviewed by the city engineer and prove that pond that is part of Section G is properly sized, the outlet structure is properly sized, it can handle the drainage.
Could you please speak in the mic? I missed part of that.
And also, we're saying that Section G, we're saying that it would be our responsibility to design it properly, to have it reviewed by the city engineer, and to make sure that pond is properly sized, the one that's on Section G, and handles the runoff for Section G.
Are you talking about the 1.8?
1.17 acre.
Are you implying you'll make it 3.5 acres? Is that what
No. I'm saying that we will make sure that it's the proper size to handle the runoff from Section G and what else is also coming through it to meet the city requirements of pre and post being equivalent.
The townhomes are just located on the hash mark portion of your map, and all of the runoff from the townhomes will go into the 1.17 acre retention facility, or detention facility. And all of that runoff will be housed on that pond or that site.
I missed the first part. When you started talking, I thought some on the board was saying something, and I was looking up and down.
Well, I was just telling you that on the map there, the townhome area is only the little hash marked portion there. And
Right.
the pond that's on that site will be sufficient to maintain all of the runoff from the townhome area in Section G.
I got a question on that.
Alderman Guys.
On your drawing, it shows Section F and it's red, including that. So wouldn't that pond have to take the runoff from all of that Section F?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's actually, 60-something lots, I guess, is what it's supposed to be.
That's correct. And we would actually make sure that pond can handle everything coming to it, not just our Section G. And Mr. Montese's already agreed and going above and beyond to pay and make sure that he has a pond that is covering Section F and other sections runoff. So he's going to get that into working order. So he's already agreed to do more than what is, just from runoff from Section G.
He's just not agreeing to accept
1.8 acre that covers all previous phases and stuff that has nothing to do with him.
and is owned by someone else.
So his concern would be liability if that floods other people's lots, and it's not his drainage.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or the fact that it would be a trespass for him to go on someone else's property to work.
Mayor.
Alderman Dupree, may I ask you something first? When you're talking about the pond overflowing, or retention pond or lake, are you talking about the 1.17, or are you talking about the 1.8?
The 1.8, that's what I was just fixing to ask, Mr. Fence, when he went over there and looked at, what was your assessment of that retention pond? Because I know down below, we're having major issues with flooding.
Assessment of the 1.8 acre.
The 1.8, yes, sir.
That's based on what I had looked at, and actually I didn't even know the other one was there. It must have been grown up, because when I went out there, I couldn't tell there was another pond out there. I didn't look for it really, but the one I looked at on the north side, the 1.8 acre, appeared to me that it was a retention pond, but there was actually a breach on the northwest corner of that levee.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, it hasn't been maintained, I guess is what I would say, for the most part, obviously, not well maintained. And it appeared also that there had been a lot of probably silt in the bottom of that pond based on what I saw as far as the inverts of the pipes. So I would just say basically that maintenance on that pond has been totally neglected for the most part. It was mowed, but outside of that.
And who was responsible for that?
Pardon?
Who was responsible for that upkeep?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Wasn't that the HOA, or no, Mr. Billy?
I think that's kind of what we're talking about.
Sir?
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that's what we're considering right now, who was responsible.
All right. Now, down below there, y'all, if you'll look on the big page here, it's just to the west of there, there's two roads that dead end, and there are multiple homes down there. I got some photos, I've showed some of you, that when a heavy rain comes, it floods tremendously bad. And I showed Mr. Gary, I believe it was. We went out there, Mr. Gary. Then we referred it to Mr. Benz. Do you know how we can fix that? We're going to get back to this just a second, because this is going to tie in with you guys. Go ahead.
Do we know how to fix the problem downstream?
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah, we can fix it. It's, but I don't know the exact answer right now. But
yes, sir.
It appeared that there may be a lot of debris in that pipe that crosses the road downstream. That was one issue.
Mm-hmm.
The other issue is maybe, like I said, the detention pond not operating properly, dumping more than it should because of lack of, volume.
Right. I got you.
Due to siltation.
All right. On the other part, this pond has not been maintained. Originally, it's supposed to be the HOA. They have not done it because I guess it's dissolved. Is that correct? Does anyone know?
I believe that the original, I don't think that there was ever an HOA formed. I think the original order was that the developer and or the homeowners association would be required to maintain.
Okay, well, they haven't done that. And that subdivision's been here, what, 15, 16, 17 years? And you see what it's done to other folks, innocent people. Who's to say that this isn't going to be more water into your detention pond that's going to be filled up, broken later, and it's going to ruin even more property than what we have now? I just don't get that it's going to be always maintained, because we see now the one next to it isn't maintained. Who's to say that this one's not, and now we got double the trouble?
The 34 lots of the townhomes would be responsible for maintaining this. I see your point about the fact that HOAs closed. It's my understanding that one was never formed for sections.
Okay.
Is what I was advised. So, but this one would be formed, and it would be funded in such a way where they can make a budget, and there'd be either monthly or quarterly dues collected from the association in order to maintain.
And once again, we're not going to talk about the next 4 years, because we got that covered. But after that 4 years, we see what's going to happen. History repeats itself. As of right now, it's good. But after these 4 years, who's going to take care of this? The city? I mean, where's the money going to come from us? When I say history repeats itself, let's look at the city. And Alderman Johnson's ward, she even spoke of HOAs failing. I'm looking at the future, not in the next 4 years. I'm looking at the future. This right here is not going to be enough to maintain. I just don't see it. I'm not an engineer.
Understood in Europe,
Maybe Mr.
but what the
Vince
city's
can
trying to do
educate me
is to
later.
is to place the burden on 34 townhome owners to assume maintenance of both lakes.
Is that what you're going to do?
No, sir, that's what the city's
Okay,
asking.
well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not even talking about section G, I'm talking about section F.
Well, and I will say, Section F, which was approved, a month and a half ago, they came in proposing no HOA, not wanting to do an HOA. And what we're proposing is to provide HOA, turn it over to an HOA management company, support it for 4 years minimum, do everything we can to make this HOA successful.
And that's why you're standing in front of us now. If that wouldn't have happened, you wouldn't be here.
But we are wanting to we want the HOA. We think that is a vital thing to make this development successful.
For 4 years, that's great.
And what we're proposing is what we believe is the best chance that this HOA has at being a success. That's the best chance that we can offer for it to be a success. Now, if the burden of 2 ponds, 2 outlet structures, the liability of water from other developments is put on these 34 homes, our belief is that you're setting the 34 residents up for failure. We think that if...
Well, don't do it. Don't set them up. Come up with something longer than 4 years to help them out, if that's what you want. But as of right now, 4 years is okay. But after the 4 years, what are we going to do?
Let me ask something here.
Sure, go ahead, sir.
I've gotten confused again. Now, you're talking about the flooding problem you're talking about for the people to the west there. Does that come out of the 1.17 acre pond or the 1.8 acre pond?
The 1.8.
Now, but that belongs by y'all, isn't it?
No, sir, it's currently owned by the state of Mississippi. It was owned by Chambliss, was the prior owner of Rex.
The state's got it for taxes, really.
I believe, I tried to get a title search done on it to see exactly how that occurred, because it's not like any tax sale I've ever seen before as far as the documentation in the tax assessor's office or the tax collector's office. But I was unable to get it done before the meeting tonight.
Did that kind of get back to your question, sir?
Yes, sir. I was looking at the GIS maps, and it looks like in 2006, that second pond isn't there, but 2009 it is. So sometime between '06 and '09 was when that second one was dug out, it looks like. So that gives us an idea of at least where to look and see when all that was done.
Yes, sir. Alderman Bledsoe.
Oh, I'm asking Vince, on stormwater regulations, how much water is supposed to be detained in a stormwater pond or lake or whatever? Because it looks like to me that's a lot of water going in that little bitty lake, and their lake's gonna fill up and go into the state lake. And first of all, how'd the state get it? Chambliss should have had it. I mean, somebody didn't do this stuff. And now the people downstream, which they collected money to build all these houses, are flooding in their zone. This is not my zone, but I was in stormwater, and water runs downhill. And when y'all's pond fills up, them poor guys down south, they're gonna get a lot more. And I don't know how much it's gonna take, Vince. I know you gotta have topo and all that, see which way the water flows, but 1.7 acres is not a whole lot put a whole lot of water in.
Yeah, I'll just say this, that basically, if they present this as a plan to be approved, it's kind of like they've mentioned before, that the 2 sections they've got labeled here, the red section and the blue section are both drainage basins, correct? So each one of those would have to be looked at individually. The red going to the bottom pond, the 1.17 acre pond, and it would have to retain as much water after construction. It can't let any more water off after construction than it was prior to construction. which I think is what was mentioned earlier. And then in the blue pond, it's the same thing up there. You'd have to design that pond so that it's properly sized. Now, I don't know if it was designed properly to start with. That may be an issue. That could be the issue, why we're seeing problems downstream and flooding downstream. But those two drainage basins, however they're submitted to us for review, that's what we would look at, just to make sure that those ponds, and they would be retention ponds. I think they would be retention pond. I don't think the detention pond is going to pass NDQ, if I'm not mistaken, because of water quality issues, right? Because just let it flow out always, I think it's going to be a water quality issue. But that's kind of beside the point. But they would be looked at to be properly sized, is all I can tell you now.
Alderman Bledsoe.
One last question, Billy. When you assume or buy a piece of property, do you take over everything that goes with that piece of property? Like if you have to move trees or whatever you got to do with that property, do you assume that responsibility?
Generally, yes, Alderman Bledsoe. There could be something in the contract between the buyer and seller for the seller to do some things, but generally, yes.
Because to me, it sounded like on the people on the bottom side, Donnie and them, or Chandler's Builders, they should have took care of that other pond or lake or whatever it is. Apparently, it's not doing the job it's supposed to be doing. According to stormwater, which it rules federal, everybody, we in a mess. Because trying to get a little pond to run into a big pond that's not big as the little pond, and that's not going to work. And these people down north of it, I keep saying down, north of it, they're going to even flood worse. But, that's just an point. That's all I got.
Our detention area.
Mr. Bridgeport, if you want to step up to the microphone, please.
The detention area on this site for Section G for the townhomes would be sized and sufficient and approved by your city engineer to handle all of the water in Section G of the townhomes.
Okay, what about F that runs into G?
It would be included. It's all the red portion of that.
It should hold it.
Yes, sir. It would be drawn up to hold it.
Okay, when it gets full, then it's going to run over in this pond that's not quite good enough.
They operate completely separate. They have their own discharge. The 1.17 does not flow into the 1.8. They work separately. And so basically we would make sure that everything in red is sized properly.
Okay, it won't
to handle everything in red.
It won't go north and flood the homes even worse.
Well, it goes west. They both go west. Of course, our 1.17 will be discharging into the same drainage ditch that the 1.8 that has issues now would be discharging. So they'll be discharging in the same ditch. I can't say that they're going to the same area, but our drainage area in red will be properly sized per our plans.
Okay, right now it'll flow west, then it's going to turn and go north. And not too long ago, Goodman Road flooded down there where the ditches come across. So, I mean, it was pretty deep. So, anyway, I'm just making a point.
Mayor.
Alderman Guys.
I'm looking at the GIS maps all the way back as far as they go. The 1.8 acres in every picture has water in it. The 1.17 area shows up between 06 and 09, and no pictures of that has it ever retained water. And according to this PUD here, isn't that 1.17 supposed to be a lake / retention? I'm not an engineer, I don't know the difference. So it's saying a lake, it's supposed to be an amenity, and it's supposed to have a gazebo and benches and all that stuff. So I would assume this little thing here, 1.17, if it's never permanently retaining water, that was never a lake, I would think. So if this is all that your client is supposed to have, wouldn't that need to be developed towards actually a lake and holds it? Well, I wouldn't think they put a gazebo on a dry hole.
Well, this is a dry detention pond, so the water goes right through it. Through a major storm event, it fills up, and it slowly releases. So it's a dry detention pond, and we're kind of forced to adopt the previous engineer's design, and the fact that if he designed this drainage system to work with a dry detention pond, If we make it wet, we take away that capacity. So I can't guarantee that I can make it wet and handle the stormwater because we're adopting a previous engineer who designed it as detention.
So, to me, wouldn't it be also likely that 1.8 was the lake and this other thing was something the engineers decided was additional that they needed for that section? That's the one that's in reference. So that one lake there's only one lake there that I'm seeing, and it's the bigger one. So I don't know what's going on there, but the PUD does say that the townhomes will have a lake as an amenity. So is there a way to look between 06 and 09? And I would assume that somebody came to the board and requested or planned.
I'm theorizing, there's a city easement that runs, if you're looking at the GIS map, that's running diagonally just to the south of the wet lake.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just wondering if, for some reason, that easement caused the separation of the two detention and retention areas. However, you're correct. It does state that the lake is supposed to be wet adjacent to the townhomes. But I'm thinking that easement may play a role in the separation of the two, but we have no documentation of it.
That's a sewer easement, Mr. Barber. The lift station for the sewer for that subdivision is right there.
Yeah.
If I remember from when I used to patrol in there, there's some sort of little road thing down there.
Alderman Young.
Just one more question and I'll be done. I'm going to assume y'all been out there and looked at this. The 1.7 or the small pond or detention or retention or whatever, Lake Erie, whatever it is, that's a little bit higher elevation than the other lake, is it not? Right. And to go from the 69 lots, which are there now, to get to that lake or retention pond or detention pond or Lake Erie or whatever it is, you have to actually walk up to the lake, uphill. How are you going to get the water to go uphill to get into that retention pond?
Pipes.
What?
Inlets and pipes in the roadway.
So you're going to get water to run uphill to that lake?
Run downhill into the pond. That dry detention pond is very deep. It's not.
I understand that, but I'm saying, how are you going to get water to go from Section F when they build these new houses, which is considerably lower? How are you going to get water to run uphill to fill an empty pond? It's apparently not working now. How are you going to put a pump in there? I mean, how are you going to get the water to go uphill?
I guess I'm not following the question.
Okay, look in. All these houses that are down here, okay, and all this you're fixing to build, and all this over here that's all part of this section, that's all lower than that pond.
Currently,
so how are you going to accept what you're fixing to build? Some of it will be lower, but some of it will be higher. Because the back side of that lake right there, or dry lake, is higher than everything else around here, elevation-wise. How are you going to get water to run from Nail Road uphill to go to retention pond? How's that going to happen?
It does it now through pipes. There's a pipe that discharges on the back side of that.
You say it does it now. Well, he just said he's looked back for 3 years and he hadn't seen the drop of water in that thing.
Well, what you're seeing on GIS is a snapshot at one point in time.
Right. But there's no water in it like there is the other one, which is downhill.
It's definitely not retaining it.
Right.
It's moving it on, and it's evaporating.
You're going to have to convince me how you're going to get water to go uphill. I'll be glad to hear that.
All I do is just say where the water's going today.
What now?
I just showed where the water was going today, going in pipes and being discharged.
Does anyone else have any questions or comments for these two gentlemen? Anyone else? Gentlemen, did y'all have anything else for the board?
I don't believe so.
Mr. Monteith, did you have anything, sir? Anybody have any questions for Mr. Montesi? Now, did y'all want to go ahead and have a motion tonight? Or I heard earlier somebody said ask Mr. Robbie Jones about something. Sir? Sir, do you have something?
No.
No. Is there any action on the board tonight? Or would you like to question Mr. Jones? You want to have action tonight? You want to table it? What? Alderman Dupree.
I'll make a motion to deny.
We have a motion by Alderman Dupree. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
Yes, I second that motion, Mayor.
Second by Alderman Young. Is there any discussion? Alderman Bostic.
I was just going to ask Alderman Dupree, what is your reasoning for denying?
First is, I don't believe that they can get the water to go. I was going to bring it up, but he said it first. To go uphill, for one. I don't believe that the HOA is going to stand. Then we're going to have another issue later on down the road. I'm not looking at right now, Alderman. I'm looking at the future. I see what they're doing. It's okay right now. But the future of this city is what I'm looking at. And I don't think it's fair in 4 years that this is not going to be maintained and this water is going to run down here on top of these people that's already been living there. I don't think it's a good idea. That's why.
Anything else, Alderman Bostic?
But legally, we don't have a motion to deny it. That's just what you think. I just want to make sure.
I stand by my motion.
I understand that. But legally,
throwing you in the middle.
I'm usually here, Mr. Mayor. He made a motion to deny, and it's been seconded, so if there's a legal motion on the floor for further discussion or vote, if that's the question.
Mayor, I do have one other thing.
Alderman Dupree.
It still hasn't been settled, what they're saying and what our attorney is saying about the ponds.
Yeah, that's not unusual. You as alderman can, make your own, decision based upon what you've heard from me and them.
And see,
What I say doesn't necessarily.
I believe my
work.
attorney over somebody else's attorney.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. We've had some discussion. Is there any more discussion? Alderman Guys.
My question is this: are we going to always deny additional subdivisions because we can't guarantee that a homeowners association is going to last for infinity? My issue here is the ponds and the lake. I don't see how, as a board, we can start denying homeowners developments, which we want if they're the correct developments, because we can't guarantee a homeowners association is going to live on forever. So I have never seen anybody guarantee one for 4 or 5 years. That is something good. My concern is I don't see we've resolved this issue on the lake and the pond. The homeowners association, what he's offering, in my opinion, is, I like that. Still, I haven't understood yet what we're going to do with this lake and the pond, which to me, at the end of the day, is the issue. I don't know of hardly any active homeowners association still going in Horn Lake today, except the one that I'm a member of. There may be some that I'm unaware of, but
Apple Creek.
Apple Creek, but there's not
Crutcher
many.
Heights.
I agree with your motion to deny it or to table this until we can decide, but it doesn't appear that the builder is wanting to take responsibility for this, so I don't know what the solution is, but,
Yeah, Mayor,
Alderman Dupree.
I would like to answer your question about, are we going to deny every development? No, sir. And my reasoning is, if you would come with me sometime and let me show you what I'm talking about downstream, you would understand what's happening down here. I'm saying no, reason being, because the people down here are already being flooded. Alderman Bledsoe said, what is that water going to run off? It's only got one way, it's downhill. So this is the reason on this one, sir, not anything else, because that's the reason. You can't guarantee anything. I understand that, but if you guys would come see what I'm talking about.
well, I have seen the flooding there.
Okay.
I've dealt with flooding for 30 years in Horn Lake. My understanding also of the process is, once we have come to a consensus one way or the other, say we approve this eventually, they still have to go back and present plans to the engineer who looks at it and determines if in our engineer's opinion, that it would prevent, or at least reasonably prevent flooding downfield from that. Is that correct?
That's correct, Alderman Geis, with this caveat that if you approve it as presented, then I and the city engineer will not look at the 1.8 acre pond
Yes.
with respect to this development, and I think that may be where some of the problems coming from that Alderman Dupree is speaking of.
Well, that's my one issue as well, not the development itself.
Mayor, just one more.
Alderman Young.
One more caveat. Alderman Geis, I'm gonna give you the reason that I'm against this. We're trying to raise the bar in Horn Lake. We're trying to bring it up. We're not wanting to go backwards. We have a townhome problem in Horn Lake now. Why introduce a second one in 5 years? That's my problem. I'm looking down the road. I do not see where this is going to be beneficial to the city of Horn Lake. Nothing against Mr. Montesi. You're a great guy. Your family's a great guy. This is not the time nor the place for this thing.
Any more? I think Alderman Bledsoe had his hand up first.
Mayor, I'd like to table it so we can talk to Vince and them and find out where can we get this water to go. Because I think stormwater says you can't turn water on somebody else. I think that's the law, Vince. You can't turn water on somebody else.
To a degree, that's correct, yes.
So I'd like to table it and come back, and if we can handle the water situation, then we don't have a problem on that end. I mean, I don't like flooding. Horn Lake don't like flooding, and we've been flooding for a long time. So, and we got a lot of it correct, because we did detention ponds when I was EMA guy on that side of the railroad tracks. And I just think if we table it and come back and let Robbie come tell us what he had in mind, because he's probably the only one here that did all this stuff, but they should have took care of the business on the north side before y'all bought the property. They should have took care of their business. That would make y'all's a lot easier. So it's kind of like a trick bag. So, again, I'm sorry all this stuff's happened, but we got to take care of the people in Horn Lake. So I would vote to table it, but Robbie, and I understand what you're talking about. Okay.
Mayor?
I believe the motion is to deny the application to construct townhomes, isn't it?
I'd like to rescind that motion to deny and then to table it, because if I could be convinced that this will work, my mind would be changed. But I just see the future, and I want it in black and white. I need where I can see it.
So you're withdrawing your motion?
I'm withdrawing my motion
Mr.
to
Young,
deny.
Alderman Young had a second. What about your second, Alderman?
Yes, sir, I'll stand with his recension.
All right, yes, sir. Now, do you have another motion then, Alderman?
I make a motion to table it till the next, well, whenever we could get it, next meeting, 2 meetings.
We have a special meeting next week, on the budget. It'll be the 14th. I don't know if you...
All right, we'll do it after that, Mayor.
Sir?
Should we do it after that?
It'll be the 21st?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that what you're talking
The reason being, because I would really love to get some answers on this. Because I tabled it, I made the motion table last time, thought I would get some answers. I haven't got any answers tonight on this.
Right.
So I would like to table this till the 21st.
Is that correct, 21st? We have a motion to table this issue until the 21st of September. Do we have a second for the motion?
Mayor, I second that motion.
We have a second by Alderman Young. Do we have any discussion?
Yeah, I think, we're not giving enough time to investigate this myself. I'm all for tabling it, but I think that's too quick of a turnaround. I think we're gonna be right back where we're at a stalemate.
Mr. Mayor and Board,
Mr. Montesi, yes, sir.
can I ask a question? I mean,
Yes, sir.
Who's going to provide this information that y'all are going to be satisfied with? I've got a licensed civil engineer here, and he's already done the first thing I did before I purchased the property, before I even examined it, was to go out there and find out about the detention basin and where the water was coming from and how much was have to be detained, and were we going to be stuck with something that had too small a pipe going under the road, and then all of a sudden you have to start digging up roads, which I've seen happen before. So I hired and engaged him, the first thing, to go out and define where the water was coming from, and if we had capacity, and if the tributaries that we dumped into were adequate. And he said, absolutely. The only other property that was left out there, and actually it's amazing, Mr. Geis, that this property, this thing has been there since 2009, and it's functioned. And it hasn't breached, there's no runoff, it hasn't, I mean, it's actually functioned. It's the bigger detention basin that actually has water that's coming not only from Ravenwood, but it's coming from DeSoto Village. It's even got DeSoto Village lots are dumping their water, which is just, I mean, in the standard realm of engineering, at least in my 35 years, and I'm not an engineer, you just don't do that. And so this other detention basin, for whatever reason, I have no idea what size pipe it was put in there, about where it drained to, about its capacity, about the calculations, and I don't think Mr. Jones is going to have it, but if he's going to be our guiding light, if he comes in and says that this is what was sized, is this going to be gospel? I mean, I'm just asking, where do we go to get the information? You're asking for me to come prove something, and I want to know, who do I need to get it proven by? Do I need to come engage Neil Schaefer? Do I engage Civil Link? I mean, where am I supposed to get this magic information from?
Excuse me, Mr. Martinez. Good stuff. I believe, Mr. Montesi, what they were talking about earlier is what you referred back to. I heard the name Mr. Robbie Jones down here when they were talking a while ago. And I see your point too. And that is entirely up to the board. I know that you have time and money tied up in this property, and that you are interested in developing Horn Lake in a positive manner and are striving to help make our city better. But we have a motion right now and a second to table this till September the 21st. Can someone please give an answer to Mr. Montesi? Am I understanding this correctly, that you want to wait there for Mr. Jones? Or do you want, Mr. Montesi has asked this honorable board for answer.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montesi.
I tried, no disrespect to Nicholas, but I tried to hire Robbie Jones. Robbie Jones told me that he had none of his servers were available. He had no information or recollection about the property, and he could not help me. And I waited 3 or 4 months while I had the property under contract before I finally went to Nick, and I said, Nick, we need to go ahead and go our own way, and if you can find any information. And I think Nick even reached out to Robbie Jones, and Robbie Jones' server, he did not have any information about this whatsoever. So, I mean, I'll get Robbie Jones in here, but he didn't have any information before. So if he's the Holy Grail, I think that may be a dead-end street. I'll have to hire Neil Schaefer if that's what it takes. I mean, to get somebody to take and evaluate, what opinion do we need in order for us to move forward?
I understand exactly what you're talking about. Y'all want to table this? Mr. Monteith is asking you respectfully, very respectfully, why? I mean, in other words, are you really wanting a vote tonight, or you just want to know why they want to table it?
Well, if you want it tabled, what do I need to bring back in order for us to have our next vote? I mean, that's what I need.
Mr. Klein, Alderman Klein.
Well, I would make a recommendation that we get our city engineer to investigate and see exactly what we need and what they're proposing will work. As you can work with them or whatever. So we've got a clear vision that it's going to work, and that we're not going to be stuck with flood problems down the road.
Alderman Guys.
I don't know if there's anything you can provide. What I'm seeing here is it says a 3.5 plus or minus acre lake. A 1.8 acre lake is not, in my opinion, plus or minus from 350. So, and it's clear from looking back what I saw, this second retention or detention pond that was dug, which you say is deep, was done at some time. I wouldn't think the builder came and built that without some sort of input from the city on that at some point. There should be documentation somewhere when that was done, and I don't know if they came back before the board or planning and changed that to build another one. Does that change the PUD? I would think there's some documentation, or there should be somewhere on that, in the minutes of the planning commission or engineers or something. I don't think that 1.17 acre pond just popped up there. Somebody built it, and I would think they had permission to build it.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, may I add something for just clarity purposes here?
Sir?
May I add something just for clarity here?
Yes.
Possibly. What I'm hearing basically is, you've got these two detention ponds that dump and go into the downstream ditch, which is basically causing problems downstream. Well, when these guys present their plan, we're gonna check it to make sure that there's no more water leaving that site after they build out than it is now. So if there's an issue downstream now, there's more than likely going to be an issue downstream afterwards, regardless of whether we make them detain it or not. So the point is, we're going to make sure that there's no more water going downstream now than it is, like I said. So my point is, if there's a problem downstream now, I think that even with a 25-year storm event that you probably use for your detention, that's not going to solve the problem, because theoretically, we're not going to allow any more water downstream after the design than what's going now. So if there's water out there now, whatever's going there now, there should be no more than that going off afterwards. So if there's a problem...
No less either, though, right?
So, pardon?
I mean, no less either. like you're talking about, the amount of water that's going there now, it cannot be increased, but whatever they do, it might not decrease as long as it's just not increasing.
That's correct, and that's for a 25-year event. Anything larger than a 25-year event, game off. You know, it could storm, it could flood there or anywhere else in the city because the system's just not designed for that. So I would think that my recommendation would probably at this point is, you know, if the board's going to move forward with this, is obviously we'll be doing the checking, but I would say there needs to be maybe some due diligence on y'all's part, maybe to go downstream and just see what you see there. I've looked at it and I saw some indication of maintenance. You know, and I don't know if the pipe downstream that crosses the road that I was telling you about, that if that's the issues, plugging that pipe up and causing, you know, water to be, like that road to be used as a dam there, or what. But that could make a big difference, you know, just the maintenance of that ditch. So I just wanted to maybe throw that out there to help say that downstream is not going to be affected, theoretically not going to be affected any more than it is today, with the plans they present and what we review.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Campbell.
Well, I was just gonna jump in, Vince. If the problem's downstream, it's not their problem.
I understand. I'm just saying that so everybody understands where it may be. You know, there could be some issues downstream.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Well, one thing, when you build houses and stuff, it takes the placement of the water. It moves it. So they don't have any place to go. If you got grass out there, it's gonna go in the ground. And if you put blacktop out there, it's gotta go somewhere. And if that pond they're talking about is a dry pond, what about the people sitting around with your things, and it's supposed to be a lake where they sit around and look at the water? I mean, that's what I heard earlier.
It's not, and it's, and I bought it and it was a dry pond, and I just assumed that pond was, and I've started from the last planter through, Mr. Barber, and I mean, and I've been working on this now for 10 months, and I've just seemed like I don't know what we're doing. But the typical way, and I hope this doesn't sound too simplified, but you'll have to do a water quotient on any piece of property. So whatever water runs off a piece of property in its Mother Earth stage, and there's calculations for it that the engineer does, and he'll present those to Neil Schaefer, and then they'll take and agree or disagree on it. But whenever it does, and after you finish putting rooftops, the water comes down at a substantially higher rate, and then it goes into these detention ponds, and it's got a smaller pipe. So it's designed to hold water and let it trickle out at the rate that it was coming off the property before you developed it. And it's done I can't imagine that y'all approved a development last week or a month ago and didn't have a detention pond or any type of talk about it. I can't imagine you can develop 50 houses and not have a detention pond. If it happens, it will be the first time. You know, I'm expecting the Holy Mother to come up and land out on the property, because that just doesn't happen. And getting back to it, Mr. Dupree, every single development that's out there in today's world, because of Corps of Engineers, you are going to have a detention basin on every single development, and it may have to have multiple detention basins, and you're going to run into that same issue about having. And the town needs to figure out, and with Mr. Barber, he's a smart guy and he knows a lot of things out there that you could do. But you're going to have homeowner associations in every development. If you ever develop another one, if it's today, tomorrow, next year, 10 years, you'll have a detention basin on every site that's out there. Mr. Schaefer, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mayor.
So,
thank you, sir. Alderman Dupree.
So where's the 3.5 acres pond? Where is it? That's in the PUD that you're supposed to have?
Well, we have to assume that after that PUD was done and engineers submitted construction plans to the city for approval for construction, and the 2 ponds that were built were the size that engineer sized and
So you're only going to assume one, not both, under the same PUD?
I'm sorry,
you're gonna assume one instead of two under the same PUD. Is that right?
Probably split it out.
Well, it was, the engineer just split it based on drainage areas, just like this red and blue you see.
Okay, so my question is, it's the same PUD as section G and F, right? It's under the same PUD, correct? All right. So the 3.5 acres is the two lots, the two lakes, right? Is that what we determined, or no?
I can only say it's in the same general area. You know, that it's obviously two lakes now.
Okay, so in their PUD, what they're trying to do, the 3.5 acres pond, it's in the PUD for them to have that. Is that correct, Mr. Billy?
It's in the original PUD.
That was my opinion.
It's in the PUD, right?
It says a proposed 3.5 acre plus or minus lake to be constructed.
Okay, so they're not going to assume the 1.8. All right? So now, you only got the 1.7. Where are y'all going to put the other 2.5 acres of a pond? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to know. Could that be used as I don't know, maybe a better runoff, a bigger detention pond? I'm just asking a question because I don't want to see the people downstream later on. Like Mr. Bledsoe said, we've got to take care of our citizens. I understand you are here to make money. That's your bottom line. Our job is to take care of everybody. That's what we're trying to do. So I want to know where that 3.5 acres is.
It's not needed.
Well, if a previous engineer for section C said the two ponds was the way to go, we adopted what they built and designed. If there is a drainage problem downstream caused by section C or caused by the 1 acre lake, our development section G is not going to fix a problem from section C.
I understand it, but
I really feel like what's being requested here is for Mr. Montesi to pay to fix previous drainage issues.
Well, you said you're not going to assume that, right? You're not going to assume the 1.8. Then if you're not going to assume it, then how can you assume that we're assuming you to pay for it? I don't get it. I want to know where the 3.5 acre pond is. That's in the PUD.
What was built in the fields, the 3.5 acre pond's gone. We can't change a 1.8 to a 3.5. We can't. I mean, we can't go redesign what the previous engineers designed. Us to redesign a 1.8 acre lake that is for detention for other things, that would be the same thing as if we.
So it goes back to what he said earlier. This element down here. You buy the land, you assume somebody else's trees that you bought, take them off. All right, so please somebody explain to me where the 3.5 acres is, because you can't. Please tell me. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Looking at this, there's a big lake here, and the houses are going down and all the way across to the end of the property. So, like I said earlier, now it looks like this, where it's a little dry pond and then a smaller, bigger pond up there. And it looks like when Chandler sold all this, they didn't include that in what was originally intended. See, the pond is bigger, and you have that in your package. And the houses there were more houses, and it goes all the way to the back of the property, and it goes around the bottom south side of that pond. So the intent was originally to have a 3.5 acre pond, and this was one whole piece of property, but it was sold. Part of it was developed, and then the other bottom part was sold to them. But sometime between when this was drawn and now, somebody put another dry pond there, on that property that wasn't originally designed to be there at all. There were supposed to be houses in that spot. So I don't know what happened, but we're having to deal with it now, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
So,
was done would have been approved by the city.
yeah,
They can't just go put in another detention.
that's my thing. I can't, for me to vote for this, I have to know what's going on, and you can't provide that. I understand your question, but I would hope that the city has some record of what occurred there, because, I don't know who would have it. I know it was probably before your time, and I imagine you weren't involved in it either. So, and we've had a lot of planning people come and go in that time, and but there has to be a record of it somewhere, I would hope. But and maybe that was approved by a previous planning commission or board to be like this. But there's a piece of this puzzle missing. Because looking at the picture, it's a big lake, and where that dry pond is, there's supposed to be townhomes. Is what I'm seeing. And that's what I believe, or the city attorney is saying. That's what's presented to us, says that the piece of property that you're wanting to develop is supposed to have a 3.5-acre lake that operates as detention or retention and as an amenity for the people on that property. And somewhere that changed, it looks like to me. But I don't. But with what I have in front of me now, it's showing a 3.5-acre lake. And I wouldn't think you want to build a 3.5-acre lake on something that's that small.
How do you size it and check and find out where all these pipes came from, what kind of condition they were in, and how much water was going to come before we even started this process? I mean, you don't want to buy a pig in a poke. And it happens a lot where you have a massive amount of water that's coming through your property, and you can't put pipe that's big enough that I can crawl into, and that's a deal kill. I mean, it won't work.
Mayor.
But the engineering would be such that our property would not increase water coming off the site. That would be drawn by Civil Link and approved by Neil Schaefer as part of the approval process. We would not be increasing the water going into this creek from this piece of property or the remainder of section. And we would control what's coming through our site.
Alderman Dupree.
I just want to say thank Alderman Geis for clearing that up, because I couldn't understand what they were saying. Maybe they're using bigger words than I know. I don't know, but thank you.
It seems like it's one of those predicaments that we get in often from previous stuff, long before any of us were making these decisions.
I think Mr. Campbell has some
I'm going to
comments.
try. Alderman Geis, the 3.5-acre lake, I don't know how it happened, but it has become a 1.8-acre retention facility on that property to the north, and a 1.17-acre detention pond on their site. So it just got sliced in two after. It probably got engineered, like that document with the yellow on it. That's just a zoning PUD text that an engineer came up with, said this is how we think we're going to design this subdivision. And once they started going through the phases, they probably figured out that, look, we've got to split this in two, and they did. But we're still left with the PUD text about who's responsible for whatever the remainder is. If it's 3.5 or 2.97, I don't see that it matters.
Yeah, yes, sir. I agree. But I would also think that the original intent was that lake to be part of this property, and it didn't get sold that way.
So if I might add, the
Mr.
map
Barber.
that you're looking at is in the PUD document. The map that's on the screen here was provided to us as the current PUD document. I don't have an amendment date or a record of a change. We'll have to research it. But this plat is what we reviewed, and you'll note that those two ponds are split on this particular map. Jim has an arrow pointed to each one. So at some point, there was a change in that design.
It had to be approved also, didn't it? Or it should have been
It
approved.
should have been approved.
Yes,
We'd have to look at the record.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And getting back to what Alderman Geis questioned earlier, how can you hold Mr. Martese, this developer, liable for something that's not even his piece of property, that 1.8? I see what you mean when you get back to that, but it still brings us back around. We seem to be going in circles here. We have a motion to table it. We have Mr. Martese requesting, I think you just want to know, well, you did say why.
What information do you want from me?
What information do y'all,
We don't need anything from him. I would like to get the research from you on it, because that might change the way we're looking at this.
All right, and I'll wait until Mr. Barber calls and says that
Yes.
he's got information, and then I can call and say, put me on the next planning
Yes,
commission.
sir, that would be
if
what I
that's
would
what you
think.
want,
Save everybody some time.
We're not getting anywhere right now.
No. Alderman Bledsoe?
I don't know when Mr. Barber, if he can stop everything he's doing, look for these documents.
Well, I'll consult with Billy on it. He has an incredible institutional memory of the thing, and we'll figure it out.
Mayor.
Alderman Bledsoe?
One thing might happen to pond, when y'all bought the property on your thing here with, in lieu of parks and all that stuff, y'all were gonna have a lake there and people gonna sit around it and all that. I don't know if you had walking trails or not, but I was old park man, so that's what I like. Anyway, if you drain all the water out, they're gonna sit there looking at bushes and stuff. So I think that might be, if you leave it up like 3 or 4 feet, then had the pipe up here and let it drain. We did in many of the pension ponds where we leave water in it and drain it down and still have a little left so the people can sit there. And that might be why them ponds were separated. Because years ago, nobody ever took care of that one pond. The city had to cut it a couple of times because the state said they weren't gonna cut it. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I understand.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. If you withdrew your motion, we really don't need a motion or anything, do we, Mr. Miller?
I think we have a motion to table, that needs to be voted upon.
We have a motion to table this until, y'all want to put September the 21st, the first meeting in October?
Mayor.
Alderman Geis?
I think the request is that when the builder and the planner get together and come up with the answer we need, then they will request to have it put back on the agenda.
Okay.
That way we aren't setting a date that we're back here going in circles again without an answer.
All right. We have a motion, we have a second. It's to table it. Is there any more discussion? All in favor? Mr. Jim, roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, number 6, new business. Do y'all want to get down through letter C, then take a little break? Yeah. Okay, resolution for cleaning private property, it's a public hearing. Now declare it open. This is a resolution, some property has not been maintained. This is a resolution authorizing the city to go in there and do the work necessary and the cost to be sent to the owner. Is there anyone out there to speak yea or nay on any of these properties? Ma'am? Oh. You weren't wanting to stand up and talk. I mean, do you, any of this, if you need to come down here and give us your name and address, please, ma'am.
Jackie Wilson, 3540 Lakehurst here.
Ma'am, Ms. Wilson, Ms. Wilson, can you talk to the microphone?
That
We-
good?
We couldn't hear your address, please, ma'am.
Jackie Wilson, 3540 Lakehurst here in Horn Lake.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, we had a problem, and I wanted to thank you.
Is this pertaining to one of these properties that are listed?
One of them is a house that's been deserted since 2011.
I mean, on this resolution?
Oh,
Are any of them, I mean, this is a public hearing on these particular pieces of property. Do you know if the one you're about to speak about is on here?
oh, I don't know.
Is 60
Glenfield, Hillcrest, Shady Grove, Northbrook, Jennifer, or Greenway?
No, it's not.
If you would like to, I'm sorry I can't let you talk now because it doesn't
Okay.
pertain to those.
That's fine.
But if you will get in contact tomorrow, we'll get hold of code enforcement for you.
Good
And
deal.
probably get it added to the list. You're a very gracious lady. Thank you,
Well,
ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Anyone else out there? Anybody else? If not, hearing is now closed. Do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis.
I make a motion to approve the cleaning of private property as listed.
Motion by Alderman Geis. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. All right, letter B is a request for a budget transfer in the police department. Do we have a motion?
Mayor, I make that motion. For
Who?
Request,
Alderman Dupree.
no, I'll make that motion, request the budget transferred into the police department.
Do we have a second to the motion by Alderman Dupree?
I'll second that.
Second by Alderman Bostic. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Letter C, do we have a motion?
Mayor,
Alderman Young.
I make a motion, we, request for advertised for bids to purchase a new ambulance for the fire department of the city of Horn Lake.
We have a motion by Alderman Young. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion to the motion? Roll call, please, Mr. Robinson.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Guys.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Is the board in favor of taking about a 10-minute break? Be back here
I'll second that.
at 8:40. Is that good with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right. We are back. Okay. Next item on the agenda, number 6, new business, is a public hearing, which I now declare open, on the proposed budget and tax levy for the fiscal year 2021 and 2022. All right, Mr. Robinson, you want to start this off, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Hopefully each citizen, we have the summary budget out there on the table. I would like to report, Mayor, that our tax levy is remaining the same at 50 mills. There will not be a raise in the tax levy. You will see in the summary budget, we have that separated into 2 columns, the 2021 approved budget that we are operating under right now, and then the 2022 proposed, sorry, that should say budget proposed there for the 2022. You'll see the revenue last year, or this year, that we're operating in is $18,387,375. We are proposing our total revenues to be $20,899,105. You'll see the major, in that, you'll see the major increases are in our ad valorem and our sales tax are the biggest increases. You will see another larger increase in the municipal infrastructure funds, which is the internet sales funds, going from $250,000 to $900,000 proposed. That is our revenue. You can, as we go down, you can see the executive, the mayor's budget will go from $100,990 to $159,840. The legislative is...
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
On the executive, that's adding that position, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
The legislative is $196,500, going to $205,450. The judicial is currently $572,600, moving to next year at $597,300 for proposed 22. The next page and the next department is the finance admin, and that is currently budgeted $448,900, moving to $452,750 for the 22. Planning is $275,880 and moving to $304,230. The police department this year is budgeted at $6,635,500 and moving to proposed $7,227,391.
May I interrupt you and ask, mainly that increase is, what, 2 more code officers and what, 8 vehicles?
And 3 police officers.
3 police officers.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so additional staff, and you can see the vehicles split out there. And for those departments that are requesting vehicles, I split those out and show those on the budget. The fire department is operating at $4,459,500 and is requesting $5,446,030 for 2022. Street is moving from a little under $1,993,400 to $1,278,400. Animal control is operating at $260,900 and request for next year is $353,900. The following page has the parks. Is operating at $956,500, moving to $1,013,600. And then the parks tournament has a slight increase also, I believe mainly due to umpires, moving from $73,900 to $85,900. The admin department is operating at $3,412,805 and moving to $3,774,314. So you'll see the totals there equal out to a balanced budget in the general operating fund. The following page goes into ad valorem. Last year, ad valorem, a mill was $179,000. This year, 1 mill is projected to be, because of our assessed value, $202,000 per mill. And you'll see the expenses likewise for the library. Their request was to remain the same. So you'll see their request was $127,500. You'll see the other expenses that coincide with the library fund that makes that $202,000 for 1 mill for operating the library. The next fund there is the economic development, the hotel motel tax. This past year we had budgeted $277,000, and we are budgeting $300,000 for this next year, generated from the hotel motel tax. The debt service for 2021, you'll see the ad valorem generated for debt service last year was $2,607,175, and then we had the prior year transfer was that $400,000 that we were holding back for the first payment of the road bond. This year, our debt service ad valorem generated is $2,508,650, and we do not have that 400 transfer. That was just for the first 2 payments. So you'll see the difference there between the ad valorem generating for our debt service. And then you can see our bonds. It has been noted in previous discussions that the 2015 refunding bond that did have the special assessment on there, that drops from 1.131,325 down to a payment of $325,000. Our 2012 bond drops slightly to $720,650. Our 2008 bond drops slightly to $413,000. The 2011 bond increases from $314,200 to $340,000. And then we start paying our normal rate for our street bond our 2019 street bond that we took out, goes to $685,000. The first 2 years we paid roughly about $398,000 per year, so it has a jump there for that bond. So our overall debt payments last year were $3,007,175. This year is $2,508,650. And the last page shows our utility fund. Total revenues last year were $4,960,700, and we are looking at a slight increase of $4,983,700. And then the related expenses to that show that utility fund will be a balanced budget also. That is the proposed 2022 summary budget. Mr. Mayor?
All right, before we get to the public hearing part, does anybody have any questions about that? I thank Mr. Jim for all the hard work, because he tried to work in there everything that the board suggested in our workshop. Alderman Geis.
Does the animal control budget include the new one new person?
It does. It has that new person, similar to police and fire, being able to go into effect January 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me, Alderman, guys, that let everybody know Miss Pat is not feeling well now. Keep her in your prayers, along with a lot of our citizens out there, especially with the virus. Does anyone else have any questions? Alderman Johnson.
Mr. Jim, for the summary budget for the utility fund, do the water sales supposed to increase for 3%, or are they staying the same?
They are. When I was looking at where we stand year to date, it looks like we're running. I don't know that we will make budget in that. That's why I left that flat. But yes, typically there's an increase every year for the water,
But
which
you don't
would in turn.
anticipate,
Pardon?
do you not anticipate one for 2020 if it's typically increased?
It's, we will, but as of right now, I didn't want to project that because it doesn't look like we're going to make that current budget of $2,027,700.
Anything else, Alderman?
No, sir, that's all.
Anyone else? If no one else have any questions, is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a statement? Mr. Francis J. Miller, please.
Let anyone else come first.
Okay, Mr. Cole Bostic, come on down.
I don't know about that now. I'm glad to go first. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board of Aldermen. I'm going to back away from the mic a little bit. For letting me just come ask a few questions, make a few statements about the budget. And first, I want to say that I have, looking at this, I'm excited where we're headed with this Board of Aldermen. I'm excited where we're headed with this Mayor, Board of Aldermen, in the 4 years that we have before us. It is, as a citizen of Horn Lake, I am just excited of the accountability that is already in place and the respect being shown to each other in asking questions. You agree to disagree. Sometimes it takes an hour and a half to agree to disagree, but you agree to disagree nonetheless. And so I just appreciate it. I think that I've left several meetings these past few months thinking to myself, that's good government. And I teach U.S. history. For me to say that is something. And so I've seen bad government, I've seen good government, and good government is happening here in the city of Horn Lake. I do want to ask just a couple questions, and if you don't know, I know that this is more of a public hearing than a question and answer time, but if the question can be addressed, most of my questions were already addressed by questions from the board or from Mr. Robinson. So just a couple of quick statements. Animal control, since 2020 into the 2022 budget, is increased $150,000. I do understand that it's for personnel mostly, but is $150,000, where is the rest of that money? If the personnel is being paid that, I want that job. So where is that $150,000 going to at the animal shelter? What is that increase due to?
Well, a large portion of that, the board had requested that all staff, at a minimum, be paid $15 an hour.
Okay.
But between animal control and parks, those two departments had the lowest paid folks. So a big jump of that is to get them up to $15 an hour. The supply line, you'll see jumps from 43,800 to 66. We, and Ms. Pat could speak to this a lot more, and Alderman Geis could too. if you compared our animal control to any other municipality, we have more dogs and service more animals than South Haven, Olive Branch, Hernando, the county. And we had voted to, the board had voted back a while ago to bring all animals up to their shots, neutered, spayed. So a lot of that is professional services for the veterinarians, because any animal we pick up, they go through a thorough check with the veterinarian and get all their current shots. So a lot of that is veterinarians' expenses. We had to bump that up because we're over budget for the past 2 years in that line item.
Thank you. That is a question answered, and as Alderman Geis, you've pointed out, we have been a no-kill shelter for a number of, I think, years now at this point, and that's exciting as a citizen to be able to say that. So that answers that question. From 2020 to 2022's proposed budget, the admin department, the finance department, admin department, and city clerk is a $130,000 jump, $130,000 jump over 2 years. What is that due to? I know that, again, there is personnel being added, but that's in the mayor's fund. That's not in the finance and admin. And then if I'm correct, a lot of the administrative services that are contracted out are under contractual services. What is the $130,000 jump over the past 2 years in admin?
The admin, the 901 budget line, is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. No. The finance, admin, and city clerk all together there.
I beg your pardon, what?
The finance, admin, and city clerk all together as one there.
It's about $4,000 increase.
Yes, but from 2020 to 2022's proposed budget is $130,000.
We had an additional staff person we added in 2020 that was removed in this budget. It was a facility management person.
Okay, all right. And then I could probably answer this one, but just want to double check because I'm all for fire and police protecting our citizens. The $1 million increase in the fire department, what is that for?
Well, I'm going to say right off the bat, we're giving a new ambulance.
Do what now? That's new ambulance, okay.
New ambulance, and then we were raising the pay scale right there, trying to get them comparable with that was one of the goals of this board, was try to make our salaries as much as possible comparable with the other cities.
Certainly.
And so that, the raises, the new ambulance, I think Chief Limble raised his hand down there.
7. I was just going to see if you wanted me to speak.
Oh, okay. I thought you were raising your hand. Mr. Jim, did you have anything else to add, or did you have
Well, we
something
were,
to add, Chief?
in my budget, it is adding a new ambulance to Station 2.
Okay.
We currently run 2. This will add the 3rd ambulance to the city.
Right.
We do have 3 fire stations. We run 3 engine companies and 2 ambulances.
Perfect.
But it's sometimes all 5 of them are on call.
Right.
Just like the police department, sometimes it's overwhelming. You can't get clear one till you get another one. But we manage, they do good, but we were adding 7 new personnel, but that's in January. Be 3 paramedics, 3 drivers, and a deputy chief.
That is excellent to hear, and that, I assumed that was the answer. I just wanted to get clarification on that. 2 questions related to sewer and sanitation. Alderman Johnson, you asked the same question that I was going to ask about water collections and sewer collections. If there is not to be a budgeted increase, does that mean the citizens will also not see an increase in our usage rates and in the sanitation services? Will our rates remain the same in this fiscal year?
Were you going to say something?
I can answer. Water and sewer is set by ordinance. It goes up 3% a year through 2023, I think. Or it could be 2022 or 2023, but for certain this year it's going up 3%.
So go back to Alderman Johnson's question, because I totally understand that. I know that it's adopted by the board each year. If the proposed budget isn't showing that, then where is that 3% figured in here? Is that to be determined at a later date? I know you said that we're almost not going to make budget with water collections and sewer collections, but I also know that a number of homes and services have been added just in the time in this previous year. So I want to make sure that's reflected in this, to where I understand that the ordinance increases it, but if the budget's not showing the increase, I want to know where the gray area is and what citizens can understand here.
Yeah, just going off of projections, I would hate to overstate, and maybe that's what took place with the utility budget last year. It was over-projected based on the water sales. I would hate to over-project looking at where we stand so far in September and what has come in that we don't meet budget. But, I mean, that can be looked at a little bit closer before the 14th. I can get with Rodney and we can look at the actual number of residents that we currently have on, and if we have a lag in collections.
Right. That was my question. I wanted to make sure that collections is being followed up on. I know that public utilities only can be followed up on to a certain degree. It's not like paying a credit card bill, but I wanted to make sure that we're not footing a bill for people that are not being collected on. I want to make sure we're all paying the same percentage of our usage. So, and the last question I have in this budget, and it's probably in here somewhere.
Excuse me, Mr. Cole.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Campbell wanted to say something.
Yes.
You mentioned sanitation. As far as I know, and I may stand corrected, there's no proposal to increase sanitation rates. Isn't that correct?
Correct. For the garbage pickup, there is not, yes.
That's fantastic. I like to hear that. The last question I have, and it should be probably somewhere in this budget, but forgive me if I don't see it. In previous meetings, there has been money approved with the American Rescue Plan from the federal government. Where does that fall into this proposed budget?
It is not shown in the general operations because it cannot be used in the general fund. Those funds are set aside to be used as deemed by the set plans with the ARPA funds, and will be rolled out at a later date as we get closer to using those funds. It was recommended by the Lieutenant Governor to hold those funds for a year to see how the federal government, I guess, rolls out all the stipulations. Sure. But we don't show it in the general fund because it won't be utilized in the general fund. Each week you see the bond cap project fund that's listed in there. It will be a separate project fund that you'll start seeing once we get that set up and start utilizing those funds.
As that money is being spent, will each, whatever is being purchased, whatever that money is being spent on, will it require board approval every dollar of that money?
Oh, yes. Everything will have to be board approved. And just the paperwork for the state and federal government, we will have to comply with all their regulations and everything that it is spent for.
Excellent.
Mr. Cole, I'm like you. I wish we had more leeway in it.
Right.
But they say water, sewer, and infrastructure, and that means like broadband.
Right.
I've always wanted to consider roads as infrastructure on that money, but it's very strict on what we can use it for. And what they say today might not be set in stone tomorrow.
Certainly.
When this stuff first came out, when we got that COVID money this last year, it started out all kind of stipulations, not that COVID money, not the American Rescue Plan, but the other. They said you can do on this or that, then they said you have to have a receipt. No, you don't have to have a receipt. Every week it was something different. And Lieutenant Governor Hoseman suggested at a speech, a public speech we gave, that put that money in the bank and let it draw what pitiful interest. I mean, you put $3 million in the bank and it draws what? less than 1/2 or 1%?
Well, no, I did get with the bank, and I guess I hadn't shared that with everybody. We are receiving 1.4% interest on those funds right now, so that will accumulate,
A little bit better than 0.5.
Yes.
But we're following his recommendations.
Okay.
And we got half the money this year. We get the rest of the money next year. Okay. And of course, we all know, you know well, that we need over there in Twin Lakes, we need down Nail Road. Broadband, I have to let somebody else, because I don't know anything about computers, and everybody up here knows it. But that was a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. It's sitting in the bank and
A good deal, and that's
earning you some extra money.
right. And that, to add to that question, then, if I can, because Mr. Robinson, you told them something they didn't know. Is there a certain way that our finance department can look at investing that money, and then the board hold that accountable instead of just dreaming this up and thinking of it? Is there do we need to talk to our finance director? Do we need to contract someone out to invest that money for us instead of it just sitting in the bank, like Mayor Latimer, you said? If it's not making a lot of interest, it's $3 million and it's not making interest, that's a problem, right? And so is there a service that can be provided that is board approved, that is investing that money the best that it can be invested?
Well, we could look at other ways, but one thing with these funds, they're regulated where they can't be tied up. I did look at CDs, and CDs aren't even close to that 1.4. It's like 0.2. But with a CD, if you did a 6-month or a year, you couldn't touch it for that time. Currently, in its checking account, it's not bound or held to where we cannot utilize it. But we can look at other ways to invest that. But we just have to go by the regulations where it's not bound, where we cannot get to it. We have met with Mr. Vince, with Neil Schaefer, and talked about, Mr. Gary and myself met with him, and we talked about all of the water sewer issues we have. I think we have like 22 lift stations that we could go out tomorrow and rebuild every one of them, because we're having issues with it, and spend every bit of that. But we're going by the Lieutenant Governor's recommendation. You've probably seen the board has approved a couple lift station repairs in the past 6 months, which I wish we could have used some of that funds, because that comes up to about $95,000 that we've spent on rebuilding some lift stations. So that's a long answer. We just have to go by the guidelines and put it in a fund and not have it restricted where we can't utilize that.
And I appreciate you looking out for the citizens to try to earn some extra money. And I don't know if it'd be legal to invest it, but I would be chicken to invest the American Rescue Plan money, which is now the taxpayers' money.
Certainly.
Me personally, I would be chicken to buy stock or anything else right now.
Sure.
Although it's a good idea personally, with the taxpayers, now it's citizens of Horn Lake money.
Right.
I would be very hesitant. Of course, we do what the board wanted and what was legal, but.
Right. Well, I think,
chicken.
yeah, no, I understand, and I like the idea of investing in CDs or things that are guaranteed no matter what. I wouldn't rely on the market either right now, because we all know that what goes up must come down, and so it's going to happen. But that's all the questions that I have. My last statement is that as y'all are looking at the budget and getting ready to approve the budget next week, that every department gets the same share, which it looks like, my questions are answered, and so the way I look at it, everybody got the same percentage increase. But looking at every department head, and making sure that we're competitive with the private market as well, and what they could be earning outside of this arena. And then also to making sure that it is equitably distributed to every director, and making sure that raises are justified, taking on new hats and taking on new responsibilities. If it's a significant raise or if it's a lower raise, why is that? So just taking a look at that. I appreciate the transparency I've seen in just the few months that we've had this new board. I appreciate the accountability, and I have nothing else for the board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Miller.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I accept. Now I'm going to try to get serious. I'm going to try not to raise my voice. I'm going to try not to lose my temper.
Well,
and I have a staff back here responsible for that to happen. Okay. For the record, my name is Francis J. Miller. I am a 12-and-a-half-year voting resident of Ward 5 of the city of Horn Lake. I take the city serious. Now, I have been collecting, well, first of all, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor Alan Latimer, Board of Aldermen, Board of Alderwomen, City Attorney, Department Directors, City Administrator Jim Robinson, City Engineer, and citizens, especially those on Facebook. Please listen to me. I have been working 5 years on the information that I have collected. I have gotten all of this information this past Friday. I had super cooperation from Joey Treadway's tax office and assessor in Hernando, 5 solid years. So they wait for me every year. This year, the whole department gave me stuff I did not ask for, but I needed, and I thanked them. Then I went to Austin Cardozi's office. He used to be the planning director of Horn Lake. He is now the deputy director of DeSoto County planning director. DeSoto County is now the 3rd largest county in Mississippi. Therefore, Austin Cardozi should know what he's talking about. He has given me enormous amount of records. This year, his whole department flooded me. This year, they even went so far because the census is now available. It is not finalized yet, but they did pull up for me comparison of Horn Lake, DeSoto County, state of Mississippi, and United States. And the way I can read this, it's up to April 1st of this year. So it's not finalized yet. But the big thing that did show up that on the census to help us understand where Horn Lake stands. Okay, there are 82 counties. DeSoto County is the 3rd largest, and Horn Lake as a city, according to this census, we're at 26,700 people in 2020, and in 2010 we had 26,063. So we gained about 700 people in that 10-year period. Now that's what these papers said. I don't agree with that, but that's what they got. Using this still. Horn Lake now, using the figure that Cardozi's office gave me, that they pulled out of the computer Friday, we're listed at 26,736 people. There are 47 counties in Mississippi with less people than us. That's what shocked me. There are 47 counties that have less people than we do. So that starts to tell you we are not small anymore. So that was very interesting. Then another very interesting thing on the comparison information and this is Cardozi's office did this for me. I didn't even ask, they just did it. Some real interesting thing on the comparison between Horn Lake, DeSoto County, Mississippi, and United States. The most interesting thing on this whole report, which made me, I had no idea. Persons in poverty, Horn Lake, 16.9% of Horn Lake is in poverty. DeSoto County is only 9.4. The state of Mississippi, which has got all of those poverty places, is only 19.6, and the United States is 10.5. I was shocked at the poverty level of Horn Lake. That one just blew my mind. Then, medium household income. Horn Lake was listed at $48,622. DeSoto County was listed at $67,038. The state of Mississippi is listed at only $45,081. United States is listed at $62,000. Once again, now, for Horn Lake compared to DeSoto County, no, that does not surprise me at all. Everybody knows South Haven, Olive Branch, Hernando have more income than we do. But I was a little bit disappointed when Horn Lake shows an income of $48,600 and Mississippi shows $45,000, and there's a lot of poor people in Mississippi. So that made me think we're a little too poor. Okay, those are big. Now, the one that really entertained me the most, female persons. Horn Lake, the women are taking over. We have females, that's everybody, female. We have 52.5% female, so females govern Horn Lake. DeSoto County, only 51.9% are female. In the state of Mississippi, 51.5%. And in the whole United States, 50.8%. So Horn Lake beats everybody in females. They're ruling us. Okay.
Mr. Miller, those are very interesting facts, but this is a public hearing on the budget. So
okay. I want to give a little background.
I don't mean to be cutting you short, but please.
The thing that you needed the most on budget,
Mr. Mayor,
was the poverty. Because
Campbell.
that show, okay,
Mr.
now I'll
Campbell,
get
wait,
to the budget.
Hold on, Mr. Miller, please. Mr. Campbell.
Mayor, I hate to interrupt, Mr. Miller, but we're approaching 9:23 p.m. and we still have some business left on the agenda, so I think we probably need to extend the time of the meeting.
I'm sorry, what now?
So it's not to run out
One
of
of the
time.
board members has got to make a motion to extend the time.
Mayor,
Oh,
I make a motion to extend the meeting.
All right, motion by Alderman Guys, second by Alderman Bledsoe. Is there any discussion? We don't even vote that. Yeah, we do. All right, roll call, please, Mr. Jim.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed.
okay, now I'll go straight to the budget.
We had to do that.
Okay, I will go now. I wanted to give you some background information because what I was headed to
Let's
was
get on
the
with the budget part of it, please, Mr. Francis.
I'm sorry, what?
Those are very interesting facts, but this is a public hearing on the budget, Mr.
Okay, I'm
Francis.
just going to go right to that.
Okay, let's go. Thank you, sir.
The budget carries millage, 50 mil. This has been too high on our citizens for 5 straight years. This year, our mill is worth $201,000 per mill. We are 6 mil higher than any other city. 6 mil times the 6 mil times 1. Our citizens are paying $1.2 million out of their pocket to balance your budget, and throughout all the hearings, you matched all of your wages comparable to every other city gave everyone raises because you wanted to be comparative, and I had no problem with that at all. But it's coming out of the pockets of the citizens to balance your budget.
If I could
Now,
interrupt you just a
here's
moment,
where the
please.
millage comes in.
The Board of Aldermen did not accept a raise for themselves, nor did I. So the other ones are for the people, if you want to say, that are really out there in the trenches. But the Board of Aldermen accepted no raise, nor did I.
I am extremely proud of that, and I want to acknowledge that. I caught on to that right away, and that was the greatest news I had in my life. When this board did, and you have not been taking a raise since I've known you, in all these fights, in all these millages, you have never taken a raise, and I have seen that. And I've seen a 13.3% from aldermen. This year, they took nothing. I couldn't believe it, and I am proud of these aldermen that they did nothing for themselves. That is great. Okay. Now, to go back to why I'm bringing this millage up. The millage is shutting down our housing. That's what I go to Cardozi for, and I have all these records to show how much tens of thousands of dollars of revenue we're losing with our millage. Now, for instance, this year alone, DeSoto County, and this is effective the end of August from Cardozi, 1,084 houses permits were granted in DeSoto County this year alone. We got 8 of them. We had 0.8%. We are multiplying our 50 mil times 8 new houses. That's our additional revenue this year. DeSoto County got, so far this year, 446 houses multiplied by their 42 mil. South Haven got 300 multiplied by their 43.73 mil. Olive Branch got 160 multiplied by their 38.5 mil. Hernando, which is 60% of our size, has 144 this year multiplied by their 42 mil. Walls, 26 houses multiplied by their 35 mil. They're making more money at 35 mil, well, because they got 26. Okay, now, that's this year. Let's go back last year. Last year in (2020), last year, just last year, in the county, 1,658 homes were built. Horn Lake, 87 houses. We got 87 houses times 50 mil. DeSoto County got 687 houses at 42 mil. South Haven got 475 at 43.73 mil. Olive Branch got 246 at 38.5 mil. Hernando got 158 at 40 mil. Walls only had 5 in 2020. We ended up with 5.3% of all new houses in DeSoto County, multiplied by our 50 mil. Yes, we needed the 50 mil. I'm going to go back 4 years ago. You had no choice but to go to 50 mil to keep this city going. You had no choice. The next year, you still needed to keep it just to keep this thing going. Last year, you started to come out of it, and it was still a judgment call, in my opinion. But now this year, you immediately announced with even announced today, you had approximately 2.4 additional million dollars to do something with that you didn't do last year. But we have a tremendous shortage of, we must have that ambulance and the staff for that. We must have that. The police department must get back to the level they were the day you took office. That has to be their goal, to get vehicles and officers back to what they had the day you took office. The street department here has not repaired, I've been here 12 years. The budget had to be balanced on the back of the street department by buying no asphalt. Because you couldn't. What do you do, bankrupt the city? No, you don't patch the holes. The people can stay alive without asphalt. But now you're playing catch up and you're doing a wonderful job. That $5.2 million is a tremendous thing to get started. But if you remember, we had meetings, and Danny Klein brought that out on studying this. We were told if we did it right, we really need $60 million just to take care of our streets. We don't have that. Everybody knows it. So you've got to work on it. So you're working on it right now very seriously. Just like Mr. Bosick said, matter of fact, I'm vaccinated. I don't need this. Anyway, I lost my train on this street. Okay, the streets, you do that $5.2 million, you start fixing them, people start seeing it, they get encouraged, and you're going to need lots of growth to go all the way up to that $60 million. My argument is, have somebody that knows somebody that understands millage to see if you could grab these houses, how much more money you would have if you got it down so the developers would come in. See, they build these houses, that's why they're fighting you so hard on this 1,500 square feet to 1,800 square feet. We have a 75, matter of fact, they gave me all my taxes, what I actually pay, and then I went up if my house was worth, and that's what educated me in Horn Lake, what we're missing. When we build these houses, even now, you're getting up to 1,800 square feet. That's now going to start bringing us more money. But with that 75,000 homestead, we're not getting enough increase even on the new houses. But there is some increase. That's why you're already, you yourself told me, we went from 179,000 per meal to 201,000 per meal. That's coming from the little bit increase in census what we have, plus those 87 homes you got in 2020. That's in this year's budget a little. You gained, so the number of houses do help. But if you got it down where these builders could build bigger homes, you'll get a whole bunch more tax per home. Then a home brings a person into your city who then spends money in your city, and also the millage affects your cars.
Yes, sir, that's great.
Okay, I want to get this millage.
Please don't forget that, we've had a lot of business building too. We've had, the Core 5 thing.
Yeah, that all helps inventory. Millage affects inventory too.
Sir?
The millage affects inventory tax. It affects car tags. So the higher your millage is, it affects everybody, businesses and everything. The point I'm making this year right now, your budget is balanced. You got it worked out. Everybody's happy. They got their raises. I'm not arguing raises. What I'm arguing is for next year and every year after this, for this board, please start studying what millage does to you. You make money by reducing millage. That's what I'm trying to prove. And I got records back 10 years on this, on what millage does to you. Every time you raise the mill, you cut your profit down. That's what I'm trying to state. But right now I'm asking tonight, not this year. This year's done. It's balanced. Everybody's happy. And all I'm trying to do is next year start getting this millage down. And you can't, we need 6 mil reduction. You can't do that in 1 year. I suggested this year 2 mil, because 2 mil is 400,000. But next year, try 1 mil. That's what I'm trying to preach tonight.
Well,
look at next year. Start getting this millage down in the statement.
You've made an excellent presentation, Mr. Francis. Well researched.
And I'm sorry I did raise my voice, but I did not lose my temper.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else to speak? Is there anyone else to speak? All right. There being none, I declare this public hearing now closed. All right. Letter E. Do we have a motion?
Mayor.
Alderman Klein. What?
Alderman Geist.
Oh, Alderman Guy, I'm sorry.
I make a motion to adopt the tax levy for fiscal year 2021, 2022.
We have a motion by Alderman Geist. My apologies, sir. Do we have a second?
Second, sir.
A second by Alderman Young. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, just so the record is clear, that is remaining at a total of 50 mills.
All right. Thank you, sir. Y'all heard what Mr. Billy said, staying at 50 mil. Is that all right in your motion, sir?
Yes, sir.
Is that all right in your second, sir?
I confirm.
All right. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries, 7 in favor, none opposed. Number 6, citizens' remarks. Nobody signed up.
Mayor.
Sir.
When the lady came up earlier to speak at the wrong time, that would have, I know it's new for us, that may have been a good time to let her know that she could have signed up to speak during this.
Does the board have any problems if she's enduring us all night long? If she wants to have, now you're entitled to 3 minutes since you're not on the agenda. You go bring your popcorn. All right. Number 7, that's Mayor Alderman correspondence. I am sorry to announce that because of the virus, we're going to have to cancel our veterans breakfast this year. And Mrs. AJ, as you know, has to approach sponsors for it. And with the virus still going, Landers wanted a commitment. And I think several of y'all have expressed worry about it also. So we've had to cancel the veterans. And then I believe, Mr. Jim, wasn't this the last payment we had on that SASE bond?
We have one more payment.
One more payment, it's $126,000 in it. That was on the road there when those people bought the property at the tax sale, and there was some confusion on the paperwork, not from the city of Horn Lake, but other places, and the money had to be refunded. All right. Now, discussion on Nail Road and Pepper Chase Drive connection. I spoke, that kind of was dying. And then Supervisor Caldwell approached me and said the county was still interested in making that connection, but to keep it a 2-lane road, because Pepper Chase was just a 2-lane road, and they didn't want it to be coming in off of Interstate Boulevard, a 3-lane, and funneling down. And I finally got back in touch with Miss Lisa today. She had been out. She's with Core 5. She's going to approach and see. They were going to build it just as a private drive going in there, and then the city do like they normally do after a year, take it. But if the interest is there to make it connect with Pepper Chase, that, they would like to see about maybe some cost sharing. That's their approach. But anyway, Supervisor Caldwell has breathed a little life back in it, and Core 5 is interested in it. But the lady from Core 5, Miss Lisa, said that she would have her people see what the increase in the price would be from just a private drive from them, as opposed to having to build it to city specifications to hook on. Of course, we got a lot of negotiations coming up on that. But I just wanted to let y'all know that today I got a call back from her, and that's what the conversation was. It was mostly kind of feeling each other out on this deal again. So she's going to get us a figure, and I already told her, I said, we're not South Haven and we don't have a $100 million budget. And I think the county is interested in helping on it also. So I just wanted to keep y'all posted that kind of got a little extra life today, which ought to be a good thing. And they still are interested in building those additional warehouses along Interstate Boulevard. So that's that with them. Alderman Young, you have anything, sir?
No, sir, I do not.
Alderman Dupree?
No, sir.
Alderman Johnson?
Yes, sir. I just want to thank Mayor and Board of Aldermen for assisting with purchasing the machines needed for Horn Lake Lion Club to be able to do the eye screening. Horn Lake Intermediate has been a part of those services, and we were able to help screen about 900 students last Thursday and Friday. So it's due to the Board of Aldermen and Mayor agreeing to buy those machines. So I do appreciate it, and I appreciate the Lions Club and everyone who was involved in helping taking care of our students.
They are a wonderful organization. Alderman Bostic, you have anything, sir?
I'm good.
Alderman Geis?
No, sir.
Alderman Bledsoe?
No, sir.
Alderman Klein?
No, sir.
All right. Chief Rowell, you have anything, sir?
No, sir, I don't have anything tonight.
Mr. Gary?
No, sir.
Anybody on the board have questions for them? Alderman Geis?
I had a complaint the week before last about when the garbage truck's coming by picking up all the debris, that they aren't picking it all up and they're leaving a mess. So if you could just follow up on that and make sure they clean up the area that they pick up, that would be helpful.
They're supposed to be.
Yes, sir.
We've been having to call Waste Connections
Yes,
a
sir.
few times on this stuff.
It was a house near where Chief Rowell lives. A gentleman contacted me, and he sent me a picture, and there was limbs and leaves and stuff all in the road and in his yard, so, but thank you.
Alderman Dupree's been having issues also. Anybody else have any questions for Chief Rowell or Mr. Gary? Chief Limble, you have anything for the board, sir?
I do not.
Anyone questions or comments for Chief Limble? Mr. Drew, you have anything for the board?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. I just want to let y'all know that we are having a big tournament September 17th through the 19th. It's up to 42 teams in climbing, so if you want to come out to that, it should be a big tournament at Latimer.
Anyone have any questions? You got 41 teams. Anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Drew? Mr. Drew, as you know, had trouble with turtles getting to his electrical cord, to his mountain, and he bought turtle traps, and so far we have not apprehended a single turtle.
That's correct. I'm not a trapper.
He and I discussed what you use for bait, and I don't think he can get any smellier bait than what he's been using.
Mayor, what you can do is throw dog food out there and take the shotgun and shoot them. That's what we did.
We best not say that publicly.
That's a long time ago.
Mr. Malavasi, do you have anything for the board, sir?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to bring your attention, I guess, to the email I sent out today. I hope everyone got that. If not, I think Mr. Jim handed it out before the meeting. But just to kind of let you know, a couple of meetings ago, I guess Neil Schaefer was asked to look at a couple of intersections in town to see if it was feasible to do a traffic signal or make some traffic changes there. And the only way to do that, obviously, is to do a study, whether that be something as simple as a traffic count or whatever. But we would have to do some kind of study to determine, number one, if you can put a signal there, and then also there may be other options that we could look at. I know when I was talking to our traffic guys, they mentioned, we might look at some other options, whether it be geometric changes or things like that. So to answer the question about whether is it feasible to put a signal there, I think was a specific question. It may or may not be, but we're going to have to do is do basically a study there at each intersection. And what I would recommend is we just come back with a proposal to do that at both of those intersections, if that's what the board, wishes to follow up on.
Thank you, sir, but you're talking about putting a traffic light at DeSoto Cove and Interstate Boulevard. I think that was, when they were gonna develop that land behind Home Depot, one of the previous aldermen brought up about having a traffic light there and discussed it with the developer or landowner/landowner. Now, they haven't done anything there, but Chief Rowell and I were talking, and the chief has some ideas of his own, and I talked to Mr. Michael Cobb, who's over several Home Depot stores, and he does not think a traffic light there would be beneficial to the businesses there because, and I have to agree, I kind of think the same way he does. If you put it there and traffic stop, you're going to have traffic backing up out on the Goodman Road. And then once people get to saying, well, we can't even get in there, they're going to shop maybe across 55. So until they start actually doing something, because as of right now, I don't know if any plans want to do anything back there. Does the board really want to consider a traffic study or a traffic light there, or would y'all rather wait a bit and let's see what happens?
Mayor.
Alderman Dupree.
I agree. I don't think there's a need for a traffic light there. I've sat there the other day for about 30 minutes just watching, and I was thinking about that. All the vehicles coming into it, you're right, it would be backed up tremendously, even if it's a 30-second light, because there's so much traffic there. Yeah, I just don't agree with it.
Yes, sir. I mean, it's something to consider and to think about. But I was just going to ask Mr. Vince, I don't think that we should be spending the money right now. We don't even know if there's going to be anything back there for a while. Alderman Young.
I mean, the traffic light, I don't see how that would be beneficial at all. This is probably a wild idea, but it comes with an entertainment factor as well. If we put a roundabout there, that would suffice the traffic, because it wouldn't slow traffic down. It would actually speed the traffic up, but it would give us an entertainment factor when you put a traffic camera there.
Especially if you got me on it. I've been on one, and it was.
But a roundabout would work. That would solve that problem.
Well,
it would work.
And Chief Rowell had a very good suggestion about it if it goes on. Mr. Vance, you had a question, sir.
No, sir. I mean, I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, we were not planning on putting a traffic light there. It was just a matter of looking to see what the options might be, and a roundabout was one of those options, along with maybe some other geometric changes there. Because you're real close to Goodman also, and a traffic signal there would be almost disastrous.
You said disastrous?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Mr. Campbell, do you have anything, sir?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
All right. I see nothing for executive session, so do we have a motion to, would this be a recess or an adjourn?
We need a recess till September 14th at 6 p.m.
Do we have a motion?
Mayor.
Alderman Dupree.
I got one thing. I want to go back to the Chief Rowell. I want to publicly thank him for his, I don't know what he's doing, but he's got officers in his subdivisions now the way we didn't have before. I've seen it myself, and Chief, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a motion to recess until September the 14th?
Mayor,
Alderman Geis,
I make a motion to recess until September 14th at 6 p.m.
do we have a second to Alderman Geis's motion?
Mayor, second, sir.
We have a second to Alderman Young. Do we have any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are recessed until 6 p.m. on the 14th.